Happy Hump Day, everybody! Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We're excited to be here today. That's always the case. It's a relatively manageable, mild day so far here in Salt Lake City for mid-August. Some cloud cover. I got to put it out there at the beginning of the show, all right? I rode the e-bike into work today, James, and it's always like, it's one of those family e-bikes with like the extended limousine back where you can fit 3 kids on it kind of thing. So when you're riding that just by yourself, you don't look cool. First of all, I would never look cool riding a bike anyway, but you don't look cool riding that thing. I will say, however, it's nice. The route from my house to the station, I go through City Creek Canyon, go through the little Memory Grove Park area. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And then I get to downtown Salt Lake City, James, and you're not supposed to ride on the sidewalks. You got to go in the little bike lanes, okay? And I'm trying to merge into the bike lane, and there's somebody in a minivan who decides to yell an expletive at me. So if you're the morbidly obese man driving the minivan right now in the whatever orangish red shirt that you had on, I hope you have a better day, sir, because you made it. So mine started out with a little bit of.
So hold on, is this the area where the bike lane, there's no like cement barrier between the driving lane and the bike lane? Okay.
State Street, right?
Yeah, that's right. Oh,
State
Street has that. Yeah.
The far right lane is just also a bike lane.
It's green. It's painted green, which always kind of confused me as a driver. Like, am I allowed to be here? And of course you're allowed to be here, just like bikes are allowed to be on regular lanes. But it was like the other places, like here on Broadway, 300 South, they have like the cement barriers, so there's no confusion as to whether or not a car is supposed to be there. Even though I have seen cars try to turn into those, so they do fit, and just barely.
I don't know exactly what he was saying. I caught the end of his sentence. It had something to inconvenience or convenience or whatever, and then he hit me with the Happy Gilmore dumbass, and I was just like, ooh.
So he honked and then yelled at you.
Window down, eye contact, and hit me with, and I was just like, sir, if I were a better person, I would just let this roll off my shoulders. But I'm not. So I hope you're out there listening, whoever you are. Text in 877-353-0700. And you're welcome to either apologize or we can have a further discussion about it. No, not really. I would never do that.
I wonder if anyone who gets mad at someone like you or Spence Checketts, radio hosts, and has only listened to them on the radio, so doesn't know what you look like, right? Maybe in your case, didn't watch your UFC or PFL fights, so doesn't know what you look like, and is like, I love that Sean O'Connell guy, but then happens to have an incident like this with you, and then is turned on the car like, holy crap, I just cussed out Sean O'Connell, one of my favorite radio hosts. I wonder how often that happens. It's got to happen as a decent amount of time.
The impression I got from this guy is he's not cool enough to listen to ESPN 700 92.1 FM.
But if you do listen, we'll take the data point. Like, thank you for your ears. We appreciate you.
877-353-0700. And I'm not on a high horse here, okay? I realize I'm riding the minivan of bicycles, and he's in a minivan, and we're equals. And the road for me, like I'm usually a driver on the road, not a bike rider on the road. The road is primarily for automobiles. I realize this. I am not this bike rider who's just like, hey, what do you do? This is my spot.
I'm entitled to this just like you are.
I'm not the guy who's going 8 miles an hour in the fast lane on State Street being like, go around. Like, I understand, but I wasn't doing anything wrong here. And he still hit me with the dumb A. And I was like, man, that is not how I wanted to start my day.
Well, we'll move on and have a great radio show. How about that? Let's do the Dan Patrick. Let's go.
All right.
Let's go. We got this. Before we completely move on, though, I will say this. I have learned, and I don't think anyone's immune to road rage. I think all of us feel it. at some point, and we do worse at it than we'd like to, right? And I certainly put myself in that camp. But recently, I have felt like if I'm taking the time to do more than honk like this gentleman did, roll down the window, make eye contact with you, and then cuss you out, like that's just, I could just be driving and I could already be like a couple miles away from the person who made me upset instead of doing that, right?
There's got to be some science, and I promise we're going to get to sports talk here in a second. There has to be some science.
I mean, cycling's a sport.
There must be something about sitting in an automobile that makes you feel powerful beyond reason, right? Because everybody, maybe it's the barrier that the windows create. I think it's the size and power of the machine itself that make people irrationally confident that they can say and do whatever they will, right? I mean, there's trillions of videos out there on the YouTubes and on the internet now, every social media platform, of the guy who jumps out at the stoplight and walks up to somebody's window and punches the window, and then like some defensive tackle from the Pittsburgh Steelers steps out of the driver's seat, and they're just like, oh no, right? Because in that moment,
I miscalculated
when you're in the car, you feel invincible. And then there might be a situation where you realize you're not, right? And we're all guilty of it. I'm not putting myself above that either. But there must be some science to it where when you're in the vehicle, you could say and do whatever you want, or you feel like you can. Your irrational, angry, screaming, cursing self comes out. And then, this guy probably drove to Welfare Square and to do his job at the LDS church. I don't know.
Something very good and
something. He's probably like the most
good for the welfare of humanity.
He's probably
absolutely.
like some super wholesome, like father of six.
But he got mad at a biker and on the road. Happens to the best of us.
Yeah. 0303 says I have a lot of beefs with road cyclists, particularly how they want us to watch out for them, yet they burn through stop signs like they own the road. That's actually a fair grievance.
That's actually a great point. If you're going to be on the road, I don't care if you're on one of those kids' trikes, right? The kids' tricycle, big wheel tricycles. I don't care. You got to follow the rules of the road. It's not just for cars to follow those rules, for sure.
The redemptive quality of after this incident happened, I was waiting at a stoplight here on Broadway, like I was supposed to, in the bike lane, and newsman Brian Malecki sauntered by.
Oh, shout out.
Minor celebrity sighting for me this morning. So it all comes out.
Some minor celebrities colliding on the streets of Salt Lake City. That's incredible.
Shout out to Brian Malecki.
What do you think was the original vehicle where people felt invincible enough to have interactions they wouldn't have had?
Well,
is it the covered wagon?
No.
Is it the stagecoach? The chariot? Going even farther back?
The original was just straight up horseback.
Is horseback.
Right? Because actually still, you're kind of invincible if you're on horseback. Like way more than you are on a bicycle. Even though you can't spook a bicycle, right? Like
you can spook a horse, yeah. A living thing.
This is real. Sure. And I don't know if the data is still accurate, but I took my initial master's work was in criminology up at Weber State University. Shout out Dr. Gillespie and everyone out there. And there was some strange thing. We were talking about, the psychology of crime and mob mentality in this particular unit. And there's a reason why they still use mounted police in urban situations. Because if you think about it, James, a horse is actually a terrible vehicle for downtown, right? For Central Park. It's not good to have a horse in New York City. They're riding on these streets and there's pollution and noise and crazy people everywhere. But there's something in human psychology where you will not attack from foot a person on a horse in almost any situation.
There's a healthy fear of a giant animal.
Yeah. And so
makes sense.
There in this unit, I mean, this is a long time. This is 2006 now. the data back then was basically that like mounted police officers are assaulted 0, on foot police officers in mob situations, crowd situations are assaulted very frequently. And that's why they still use horse. So I think that is the initial, I am invincible by being on this vehicle. You hop onto a 1,200-pound animal and you're just like, come at me, bro. Let's go.
I mentioned like tongue-in-cheek covered wagons and stagecoaches, and then I thought of the Amish with their horses and buggies that they still use to get around in Amish country. I wonder how much road rage and invincibility happens in Amish country on the horse and buggy.
I mean, I can't imagine if you're going across the old Wild West in a stagecoach and you have the little mare's leg, the short rifle that you can use with one hand so you can hold the reins with the other one. You got a whole team of horses. That had to feel pretty invincible. 877-353-0700. Maybe you're a believer that our ancient ancestors rode on the back of the mighty mammoth rather than hunting them to extinction. Was that the initial invincibility vehicle?
And there's our segue to sports. Go hockey, go mammoth, baby. No hockey news to segue to, though.
We're a little bit in the middle of an off season for that.
I will say this. Did you see the video of Mike Folta, our friend of the show, Mike Folta, radio play-by-play guy, of him? It resurfaced from a game in January, eating it outside the Delta Center on a scooter.
Yes, and
incredible.
I'll say this: it looked like it was a Lime scooter, the rented scooters. Okay,
yep. I prefer the Spin. Oh, that's just me.
Okay. I'm a Lime guy.
You're a Lime guy, okay?
Because Lime also has bicycles.
Yeah, that's true.
That you can rent around.
So the same app you can get.
Same app.
Rent both of them.
When I was in DC, I was riding around on a Lime bicycle. Rode all the way around the monuments, the National Mall on fight day. It was just like, oh, there's the White House. Oh, Washington. Oh, hey, Lincoln, what's up? It was great. Anyway.
That's what the scooters were made for, is a place like that, for sure.
100%. Anyway, I have seen the video of Mike Folta, and to his credit, it was not like his lack of awareness. It was not irresponsible riding. It was just pure terrible luck.
Terrible timing.
The timing, they have those like balustrades that come up out of the earth, that come up out of the driveway at the Delta Center. They come up out of the driveway at banks. They come up and
parking garages.
They're those giant metal cylinders spaced like 3 feet apart that come up out of the ground, so you can't ram through a gate or whatever.
And if you don't know, if you're like me and had never heard the word balustrade before, think of like outside of Walmart, the big poles that stand up there, but they come out of the ground. We've all seen these.
Okay, now you made me. I'm verifying about a complete.
I'm sure you're right.
A complete safety and decorative barrier. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sure you're absolutely right.
A row of vertical posts called balusters or spindles. Yeah. All right.
I mean, I've definitely heard of spindles. I've probably heard of balusters. I did not. That balustrades is a word for me.
You had me wondering if my word of the day calendar deceived me. Anyway, Mike Folta riding, and in the exact moment he's riding over one of these things, as it's, someone hit the button to raise it up, it just hits the bottom of his scooter, and he face plants.
He literally face plants, and Nick Olczyk is the one who resurfaced it for everybody and told the world about it, everyone and all of his followers, which, of course, a huge amount of them here in Utah. So there were a lot of people like, we saw this, right? This isn't new. And Folta was like, yeah, it's not new. It's just being recirculated thanks to Nick Olczyk. So shout out to Nick Olczyk for bringing that back into our lives, or for people like me showing it to us for the first time. Did you see? So his niece is learning to walk, and of course, there's awkward. If you took a freeze frame of everything, as I'm learning now, everything your toddler or older, pre-toddler baby is doing, you're gonna get some funny, awkward looks, right? And there's one of his niece face down, just like Folta was after getting tripped, because she's learning to stand and walk around. And so someone in his family group text did a still shot of him on the ground and his niece face down, and be like, Ed, like daughter, like niece, like uncle is perfect.
All right. Anyway, that's my TED Talk on riding sharing the road. Again, to recap, I am not the bicyclist who thinks that you should give me the right of way on a street. I realize that roads are for cars primarily. I try to fit myself in when I'm on a bicycle to the spaces in the in-betweens. And Mr. in your minivan, a wag of the finger at you, okay? I was hoping, James, last thing, I was hoping because, as you know, downtown, State Street has a stoplight every single block, right? I was desperately hoping that one of those greens was going to turn red so that he would have to stop and I would be able to catch up and pull up right next to him and be like, did you want to repeat yourself, sir?
And you be the former NFL in the scenario, you as a former MMA champion.
Just stop next to his
the
open
guy
window.
that makes them think twice about what they just did. Yeah,
sir, is that the language you wanted to use with me, sir? I was secretly hoping
start
for that.
Flexing a little bit. Is that what you want?
I am wearing kind of a tight T-shirt today, so.
Too bad you don't just have your PFL championship belt just on hand, so you can just be like, are you sure? Do you see how this says MMA champion, sir?
To prevent situations like this one, I think I'm going to start wearing it when I'm on the bike, because people are either going to be like, whoa, that guy for some reason has a championship belt, or they're going to be like, wow, that is a very mentally ill person. I'm not going to yell at him. Those are your two outcomes, so no one's going to bother
me. Or maybe instead of biker shorts, you should wear if you have any UFC branded
I did.
I still do. Of your trunks, you could wear those instead of biker shorts.
I have some actual fight shorts where they were white and the blood of myself and my opponent has settled into deep brown stains.
That's the perfect thing for purposes of intimidation. Are you sure you want to yell at me, sir? Do you see how this says UFC and how there's blood stains on it?
Well, they're dark brown now, so they might be like, did you poo your pants? What's that from?
It's blood. Blood turns brown after a while, okay?
You know that blood oxidizes to look dark brown. You know that, sir. All right, we got to stop. We got to get on the sports. I promise I wasn't just filibustering because I didn't have anything planned for today. I promise. We have Tony Parks joining
whatever
us.
You say.
Tony Parks is going to join us in about 12 minutes. We have more Scally sound, and we have some Bird Ficklin sound from Camp Scally. We have the Daily Dump coming, as we always do. Dan Sorensen on a Ute Zone Wednesday in the 1 o'clock hour. We look forward to those conversations. It's going to be a staple of our football coverage this year. All right, so that's all coming up on the show today. And I wanted to apprise everyone of some rule changes that are happening in college football that we probably all need to be aware of. You need to be aware of. I need to be aware of. Every one of you knows that there are players coming back into college football for a fifth year of eligibility. We have not heard anything new, as far as I know, James, about Nakari Rogers potentially getting a fifth year of eligibility and perhaps rejoining this Utah football team. I think that's a delicate thing. You have to be careful about, there are walk-ons on these teams still. You have to be careful about holding a scholarship and then saying, oh, yeah, look, this guy who we thought was graduated and done, he's going to come back and we've got a scholarship for him. That's, coaches don't have to worry about walk-ons too much. But there are also guys that have been granted like the preferred walk-on status promised. When we have a scholarship open, you're going to get one. Bringing back a fifth-year guy, I mean, it's an easy case to make. He scored a bunch of touchdowns for you last year. How do you deliver that message successfully to Wayshawn Parker? How do you deliver that message successfully to Daniel Bray, to Chavez Soto, to some of these guys that are in the room right now? So we know about that rule, right? And there are teams in the Big 12 we'll get to later that are going to be benefiting from this greatly benefiting from this. We'll get to that later on in the show. I don't want to get off target right now. But there's other rule changes, some of which I think are really going to be awesome for college football. And we'll start with the first one. Targeting has been an issue. The enforcement of targeting, the adjudication of targeting, the reviews of targeting. It's been a really complicated thing. And it's a noble pursuit to try to eliminate those dirty helmet-to-helmet concussive hits from the game. They're doing it for a reason. NFL level on down are doing it for a very serious and very important, perhaps existentially important reason in football. Because the fewer guys who have crazy concussion problems, mental health struggles post-career, brain damage, for lack of a more delicate term, the fewer guys that leave football with that, the more people are going to participate in football moving forward. Already, there's a pretty significant divide that has happened in this country between parents of a certain background, a certain financial status, a certain, zip code, not wanting their kids to participate in combat sports, contact sports, because we know about brain health. And there's a view that like, oh, you don't have to do this, so don't do this. There's a discouragement from contact football in some communities more than in others. And if we can eliminate as much as we can the brutality of football, the concussive hits in football, we should. So I'm glad targeting is something that they've brought into, targeting is a penalty, I should say, something they brought into the football sphere. We've had a really hard time making the punishment fit the crime and making sure that, it's a spirit of the law thing more than just a letter of the law thing.
Yeah, almost everything else about the rule other than the intent has been clunky at best, at worst, like the worst rule in college football.
Yeah.
And even going down to how long it takes for them to review these plays. Like we hear this most in basketball. Oh my gosh, we got another review. But the targeting reviews are that for football, where it's like each time it feels like it takes 10 to 15 minutes.
And look, we've seen Utah be on both sides of it, right? We've seen Utah have all of us at Rice-Eccles Stadium going, oh, that's targeting, and not have an opposing player penalized or ejected. And down at Lavelle Edwards Stadium last year, you had a clack of the helmet against the clack of the Bear Bachmeier helmet, and Lander Barton is kicked out of the game. And it's like, when you hyper slow-mo that thing down, yeah, there was helmet-to-helmet contact, but it, to me, was not the spirit of the law behind targeting. And, of course, then you have second half targeting penalty was a suspension moving forward. Now, they're doing this kind of on levels. Your first targeting penalty, regardless of when it happens in a game, does not automatically result in a suspension for the first half of the next game. You could commit a targeting penalty on the last down, the last snap of your Idaho game, and you still get to play against Arkansas because it's your first targeting penalty of the year. I think that's a good thing because what they're doing, they're trying to punish intent. They're trying to punish bad intent. And if you can't infer a player's intent through film, because you really can't, repeated patterns of behavior are a way that you could say, all right, that is dirty. You've done it. Like, now let's punish it. The second time you get it, now you will serve the suspension. Okay?
You will miss the half of football, the traditional suspension. Okay.
Yes. And the third time, you get a full game suspension.
Three strikes, you're out, baby. Is there a fourth, you're out for the season or something?
Must sit out the full following game. And there's no, as far as I could tell, there's nothing beyond that.
After that, it's probably just you miss full games each time, I would guess.
I imagine so. Now, there's an appeals process, and that's going to be conferences that get to choose how the appeals process works after your second targeting penalty. So then you send it to the NCAA National Coordinator of Football Officials. They do a full video review. And if the appeal is successful, you don't have to sit out the first half of the following game. So even on your second, when you will miss the first half of the following game, your coach, and everyone will do this every single time, they'll submit an appeal and try to get your eligibility for that first half back. And that's, again, like this is probably the way it should be. If we're going to use replay to clean up the game, use replay in every way possible. Use replay to try to make sure that you're punishing the offenders, and that if it's something like an incidental contact thing or that one's ticky-tack, let's not make him miss the first half of the BYU game or the first half of the Arizona game or the first half of the TCU game because of something that realistically was not an egregious penalty. One thing that the officials and I think the replay officials are getting better at is most of us when we're watching, and if we could strip off the crimson tinted glasses or the blue tinted glasses if you're a BYU fan, or the Aggie blue tinted glasses or whatever, most of the time you can see, oh, that was a dirty hit. That was a guy deliberately planting, launching, crown of the helmet, to the chin strap, whatever, right? Most of us know those dirty hits and have to accept those ones deserve a suspension.
Do Aggies fans know them more than others in the state based on the dirtiest teams in college football?
They probably do.
They
probably do.
They seem to. That's such a ridiculous list. I love that we were able to find that out.
The penalty for offensive pass interference is now 10 yards instead of 15. So when you see an official call offensive PI, which is probably one of the rarest penalties in all of football, and you see them march it back, it's going to be 10 yards now instead of 15 yards. The reason for this is they want the rules to reserve 15-yard penalties for personal fouls and unsportsmanlike conduct. Defensive pass interference is a full spot foul with a maximum 15-yard penalty.
So wait, full spot meaning what?
So if you commit pass interference 9 yards down the field, it's a 9-yard penalty.
Oh, it's not
an
a
automatic
15.
first down.
Gotcha. So if it's beyond 15, then it's only 15.
Yes. If it's 25 yards down the field, it's an automatic first down, but it's a 15-yard penalty.
Gotcha. So they're stopping short of the NFL rule that a lot of people like, and myself included, where it's just like spot of the foul. Even if it's 50 yards downfield, you've got a 50-yard completion from that. I don't hate that college is different than the NFL in that way, even though I just said I do like the NFL's rule best. But I like the adjustment of like it's a spot foul unless it's beyond 15, then it's just 15 maximum. Gotcha.
Okay, a couple other ones that we need to talk about before we take a break and get to Tony Jones. I'll go quick with these. This one, unsportsmanlike conduct. This is an automatic unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Any of these 5 actions or gestures. The act of simulating brandishing of a weapon. I don't know if that means, it's mostly guns, finger guns, right? It's the blap, 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 which is what the cool kids do now. So I don't know if the bow and arrow probably counts, so don't shoot the bow and arrow.
That's a weapon. Do you do a crossbow? Is that something you can be able to tell that's a crossbow?
It's going to look too much like a gun.
And good point.
I don't know if swords count here. I don't know if you can do like a cool like samurai sword. There's actually a lot of MMA fighters who are big anime fans, and they do weird anime celebrations that look like someone like sheathing a sword after they knock somebody out.
All right.
If you do that after a sack, is that brandishing a weapon?
Are they going to know that's what you're doing?
Are they going to be like, that's just, I've seen the Michael Jackson movie also. That's a dance. I don't know.
The other thing to note here is I'm sure this is in response in some fashion to Ja Morant's hand grenade explosion thing as a way to get his personal reputation around guns, and so instead of mimicking a gunshot, he's started to throw the grenade and act like there's an explosion. I'm sure this is like them saying weapon is them saying, okay, we don't want the Ja Morant grenade celebration either. Okay,
so no weapon. It's kind of like when you were in elementary school and they ruined everyone's Halloween costumes because you couldn't bring facsimiles of weapons. And you're just like, this is a foam sword. They're like, nope, could be a real sword. It's neon green. I promise it's not a real sword. And they're just like, can't bring it. Your elementary school Halloween parade, no weapons, period. I'm the Grim Reaper. I can't have my scythe. No, you cannot. All right, fine. So no weapons, no brandishing of weapons, no simulating weapons, no weapons, okay? Slashing the throat, or, this one is hilarious, or a nose wipe signal.
Yeah. That one got banned in the NFL.
What is the nose wipe?
I think it's the.
Yeah, but why? What's wrong with the nose wipe?
I'm not exactly sure. I wonder if it's like a drug reference is what I've always
877-353-0700. I'm old. Explain it to me like I'm not old. Why is the nose wipe offensive? Also, why is the nose wipe a celebration in the first place?
Yeah, I don't know. I think snot's the reason. It's
What
just,
if you
snot is just too offensive.
What if you actually have to wipe your nose immediately after? Because a big hit will clear your sinuses, right? So now I just got to let the snot dribble down my mouth?
Got to wait till the next play is started, then subtly wipe your nose, OC.
All right. Removing your helmet after the ball is dead, nothing new there. Dead ball contact fouls such as pushing, shoving, striking that occur clearly after the ball is dead and are not part of game action. And then using forcible contact to push or pull an opponent off the pile after the ball is dead. This one is actually more relevant. The pulling people off the pile when there's a loose ball is a bigger problem. That's where you're going to see a personal or an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty at some point this year, and you're going to be like, what? He's just pulling them off the pile. He's just trying to get – so you can't do it. You got to let the pile be adjudicated by referees. Cole Bishop used to do this a lot.
Pull people off the pile?
Yes.
I guess I didn't pay close enough attention to notice that.
Automatic unsportsmanlike conduct penalties for weapons actions and for wiping your nose. No nose wipe signals. We'll get to some more of this rule change stuff later. But targeting, I think, is an improvement in targeting. I think we got some good stuff going on there. Got to take a break. We're going to come back. Our guy Tony Parks, the voice of the Bees, baseball insider, and you'll hear him on some college football this coming fall as well. So we'll talk to him a little bit about that. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in one of our favorite guys to talk to. Voice of the Salt Lake Bees, Emmanuel here, talking some college football, some NFL football, some basketball, all things coming up as baseball season eventually winds down. Our friend Tony Parks joins us here on ESPN 700. Welcome, Tony, again. How are you?
OC, man, I'm great. I'm at the ballpark. Beautiful day. I'm here in El Paso, Texas, ready to rock, but also excited about everything that goes on in the world of sports. I'm excited for college football as well, man. Like, this is a great time of year.
Where does El Paso rank on the sort of cities you get to visit as the voice of the Bees?
Favorite place to call the game. Not among my favorite cities by any means. Don't dislike it. Least favorite to travel to because there's pretty much never a nonstop, right? Least favorite ballpark food is here in El Paso. I've tried out all the different stadiums, so they rank last there. But the ballpark is wonderful. I mean, really scenic, wonderful little different features in terms of some cool like premier seating and rooftops and a beautiful look at downtown. So it's my number one favorite place to call a game in the league. But it doesn't rank high in a number of other areas in terms of, like, I was asking Jack Santori used to play here, and he's on our coaching staff. I said, all right, where's the best place to go eat? He's like, there's not many great spots, I'll be honest.
Oh, no.
Okay. All right, man. So you're home away from home. He's like, I'm just going to call it like it is. I was like, okay, man. Sounds good.
That, for me, that's the whole ranking for me is where can I get good food at the ballpark, right? So, I mean, I'm more of a glutton than most people are, but when you're at opposing ballparks, you know, gimmicky Franken foods are kind of a thing in baseball these days. Do you go for that, or are you just like, no, man, I want my ballpark dog, I want my Cracker Jacks?
Yep.
What do you do?
Yeah, I'm not going to go for the donut sandwich or something like that, right? Like, I hate to be the old school guy. I'm going to try out everybody. I try out your dog, your stadium. I give your dog a shot, and then I'll decide a lot from that point on. And here it was not just last. I mean, we're talking like dead last. I mean, like PFL, bro. Like, whoa, last, right? And I'm thinking like El Paso.
Yeah.
Have all this flavor. Yeah, I'm looking. I can see Juarez from my broadcast booth. So I'm like, okay, like, we got to have, like, you know, there's some good Tex-Mex around here. Nope. And I was shocked with that at this stadium. So, you know, I was like, all right, man, I gave it a try. You had your shot. I got to be honest, though, Salt Lake, in terms of, like, you know, yeah, their food has been among the best. But I've also had more chances to try out their different burgers and things like that. So, but, you know, it's all part of the experience, and, you know, your ranking, the ranking is the ranking. And so, you know, I used to just evaluate it not on emotion, just based on performance when I did the AP ballot. And I'm the exact same way when it comes to all of this. There's no emotion. I just call it like it is.
All right. I want to jump into some major league discussion here with you for a second. Since the last time we talked, the Dodgers got even more Dodgery, and they were able to trade for Skubal. And it's one of these things where, like, there are some traditionalists in baseball who are kind of rolling their eyes. There are some folks saying, like, they're ruining this game. We've had Murderers Row bullpens. We've had Murderers Row starting lineups. We've had Murderers Row batting lineups in the history of baseball, and they become legendary. But for some reason, I think people are kind of sick of that, over it with the Dodgers, because it seems like it's just because of the finances. How are we supposed to be viewing this as baseball traditionalists when they've built an all-star team in LA?
They really have, and it makes it fun to watch going back to the Yankee years, right, in the late 90s, 2000s, because that was fun to hate them. Not necessarily because I was always indifferent to the Yankees, but I did get sick of them winning all the time, so suddenly it was, you know, a vested interest to root against them in certain postseasons. It'll be that way for the Dodgers. You know, they've won back-to-back titles. They are the best team in Major League Baseball the last 2 years. When I look at it, there's a variety of different ways to see this. And one, when it comes to the Dodgers, their commitment matches their expectation, plain and simple. All other teams had the chance to go out there and do this. They didn't, and the Dodgers did. So while I don't root for the Dodgers, we had a saying in our house growing up, and we were all big Cubs fans and everything. but there was just something we didn't like about the Dodgers. And our phrase was anybody but the Dodgers. So the postseason would hit, and if it wasn't the Cardinals, obviously, or the White Sox, it was anybody but the Dodgers. And so we find ourselves rooting for, you name it, the Blue Jays last year. We could go through it, the Yankees the year before. This is one of those things, though, where they had their opportunity. They were able to get Tarek Skubal. I saw the deal and thought, wait, that's it? That's all? Nobody else came up with a better deal than that? Are we kidding ourselves right now? So I do think that there is something where there's a mixture of major league teams who are far more aggressive when it comes to wanting to do what it takes. And the Dodgers are the most aggressive. And it's not just the money they're spending. There's a lot that they do in their organization. The Oklahoma City Comets were just in Salt Lake, and they were red hot. And you looked at that lineup, and you looked at the details and everything that was going into it. And you saw a Bees team that in the Angels organization was competing to win games and a series and that. And you could see a AAA team that still had a lot of guys. I mean, Snell was there. I mean, Knack was there. We had guys that were there. It was like, what, Glass now? I'm going, wow. Like, these guys don't make the cut. Like, some of them, obviously, it was a rehab assignment. But you're looking at, Gervais. You're looking at guys where you're like, yeah, they've spent time with the Dodgers this year. And there's a standard and a level and a commitment to their level of play based on what they built in their system. They deserve all the credit in the world for that part. And anybody who obviously hates on them for that, well, I don't know what to tell you. Ryan Ward's been the AAA or the TCL MVP 2 years in a row and barely gets a sniff. He's led the league in home runs 2 years in a row, barely gets a sniff with the Dodgers. That's what they built in their depth. And they deserve all the credit in the world for that. You just got to call it like it is. But as far as what we're seeing economically in the league with no salary cap, and I think you're looking at a number of owners who are all in different places on how they view it and what the players union is going to go for. The scary part is with the CBA expiring here coming up, it is imminent that we're headed for a work stoppage of some kind. Whether that's they don't find a deal until right there in March, or they find a deal and the season starts suspended in the middle of April, like you can just see the gap between the two sides. So the fear that is there that we could be headed, for losing pieces of a season or postponing the start of a season or whatever the gloom and doom that can be out there, I do think that there's some reasonable concern for what's coming up because the two sides are far apart, and now you just saw what happened here.
Tony, is the casual baseball fan aware of the Miz? Are people missing out on one of the most electric, blistering arms that we have seen in modern baseball because he's a Milwaukee Brewer? And, of course, I'm asking you about Jacob Mizorowski.
Yeah. Yes, and guys like Mizorowski, as a Cub fan, and I was back in the city last week on a Monday. I actually went to the game, the Dodgers and the Cubs on Monday the 3rd, and it was fun. And, the Cubs are playing well. But here's Milwaukee, and, they're just doing what they do, man. They just roll out and flex in a big way, and they're operating really, really well as an organization. But the Miz, you're right, especially if you're going to hit triple digits like that all the time, he is going to be misery for everybody else that's out there. And so it's funny because, we're talking Ohtani, we're talking what's going on with the Dodgers. There's so much conversation happening, and you're right, they're all missing out on the fact that the team right now with the best record in Major League Baseball is in Milwaukee. And that team right there is capable of winning it all. And everyone will shrug their shoulders and be like, they'll blow in the playoffs, which I think is a lazy take because they could. But at the end of the day, and I know, Milwaukee's put together a really great club, and they have now an electric arm. And it's really fun watching the best of the best in Major League Baseball right now for a couple of reasons. And I think you'll appreciate this. Look, you can look at some of the previous eras and see dominance and guys that went CG and, constantly had, 100 and whatever pitches, and it was efficient, and there was this and that. The strike zone is smaller than it's ever been because now it's the actual strike zone, OC. You go back into those 80s and 90s, and it was like, well, that day, fill in the blank umpire, he gave a lot of room off the end of the plate, and that's just the way it was. It's like, okay, but that was a huge advantage for Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz, any pitcher, Clemens, that you want to fill in the blank for. So these guys now, it's like, oh, no. You have to throw strikes, and you have to be great with your stuff, and your stuff has to beat the other guy who now knows that he has a challenge to use if you get a bad call. He also knows that these umpires are being evaluated in a stricter way, more so than they ever have. And so there is no weird unwritten rule. You got to protect the plate here. Oh, no. You throw a strike, it's a strike. If you throw it 0.1 inches off the plate, it's a ball. And so that's the way it is now. So what makes it so impressive, to your point about the pitchers now in the game, the best of the best, I think it's even more impressive because they have to throw it in the zone.
And in Miz's case, he's throwing it 50 times a game at 100 miles an hour in the zone.
Stupid.
It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's just like straight heat. Here you go. Deal with it. It's not like some reliever either. This dude's going out there and just carving them up. I just love it, man. I love the best of the best right now. I think it sucks he plays for Milwaukee. Other than that, I like it.
How has Boston turned things around the way that they've turned things around? I mean, look, Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox, these are always going to be the teams people want to talk about. And the Red Sox, for the first few months of the season, was just like, oh, we're not going to talk about them. They are going to be, if we do, it's going to be talking about what a disappointment they are. They won 21 games in July. I mean, this is a team. They look like a completely different team.
Yeah, that was crazy, man. They'd won, 27 out of 30, and then, kind of hit this, mild cold spell, if you will. It's amazing to watch, how it happened, and it's a rare stretch. It's like the rarest of the rare. They're comparing it to the 36 Giants. I always just go with, the 03 Marlins. That's the first team that really jumps to my head. And our manager was on that staff with the 03 Marlins. And he just said, no, it was actually great defensively is where it started to turn for that team. With this team, they've been much better with zone discipline, right? Something so simple like that. Now, all of a sudden, they don't hurt themselves nearly as often. And it's amazing how it happens when you don't hurt yourself as much, and then you end up being a much better team. And the Red Sox do a lot of the little things so well. And all of a sudden, some of these close losses turn into close wins, and they've had some luck here and there, but overall, they've deserved their luck. And you just feel like every time they play their hand game after game, they're going to give themselves the best chance to win. And so it's so crazy. I mean, Boston, was headed for a minus 29 differential. Now all of a sudden they're on their way for a plus 114. This is just stupid with what they've done and how they've done it. It's like they're on pace. Projections 84 runs on the offensive side, 59 on the defensive side. When you talk about the different advanced metrics and everything that goes into this, this is special and it's cool. And they're a real threat. I mean, they're a real threat, obviously, to do something great in October. And so I've never loved or hated the Red Sox in any way. I've just appreciated watching this recent stretch. And, they're a feel-good story. And, we watched what happened with the Knicks winning the NBA Finals. They were a feel-good story. And I know it's not the same exact thing, but where you're wondering just how good can they be? And all of a sudden they won it all. And so for the Red Sox, the way they've connected, the way they've come together, we love the movie Major League, the way they turned it around. And, I don't know if they have a cardboard cutout of their mascot Wally, and they're ripping off a piece for every single win that they get. But whatever's happening, it's working. And good thing for the Red Sox, man, is they've made the East exciting. They've made the American League exciting. And I think it's going to be a really fun race to the postseason and a total postseason.
A little shifting of the gears, and the last thing before I let you go so I can stay at least close to clock. You're one of the only real Michigan fans that I know. And obviously, Kyle Whittingham is now the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. And Big Ten Media Days, he maybe said the wrong thing about the way he feels over the Ohio State rivalry and kind of doubled down on that when asked about it again. It was like, does it give us a better chance to beat them if I hate them? I don't know, man. I want to beat them, but as a real Maize and Blue fan, how did those comments sit with Tony Parks?
Well, it's okay. First of all, I don't want a coach who's going to go out there and be something he's not to try and win a press conference. So the one thing that I've tried to tell Michigan fans when they're like, I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me and it doesn't this, it goes back to the Bronco Mendenhall thing. I always remember this, when Bronco was winning conference titles and beating Utah, it was like, see, BYU's getting back to what they are, and he's being himself, and it's making an impact. Then they would win 10 games but lose to Utah, and Utah went to the Sugar Bowl. And all of a sudden it was, I'm sick and tired of all these scriptures during press conferences, and I want my church on Sunday, but I want my football on Saturday. And the narrative shifts whether or not you beat your rival. So if Michigan beats Ohio State, it's like, you know what? At the end of the day, he didn't make it bigger than it needs to be. They're making it about this and that. He's making it about football. That's what makes Kyle Kyle. And, he's authentic, and that's what makes him a winner. And if they lose on, by a quarter of an inch to Ohio State in Columbus, just because they're good, not because, somehow there's something wrong with Michigan. Like, I think Ohio State will beat Michigan if you make me pick now, because Ohio State's really good, by the way. So, and they're in a better spot in their program than Michigan is. So if Ohio State beats them, then all of a sudden the narrative will be that Kyle didn't take this game seriously. Like, all of a sudden it didn't mean enough to him. Are you out of your mind? Kyle wants to win a national championship. Kyle wants so badly to do that. So he's going to pour everything he has into it. So the idea that he has negative emotions towards the rival and that will make the difference between third down conversions and not converting in the red zone, like, no. Jay Hill, Kyle Whittingham, and everybody, I've always said, if you let the show get in the way of the game, congratulations. Because we can talk about how the emotions play into the rivalry, and I can show you in BYU and Utah's history how the emotions were counter-effective. They did not impact the team positively. Go look at some of BYU's performances. 9 false starts in 2013. They were a pretty disciplined team up to that point. Then all of a sudden, their two biggest, or I think it was 2012, rather, where they lose a game they probably should have won. I can give you plenty of examples in Utah and BYU's history where, when people talk about, throw out the records and throw out this and throw out that, and it's like, yeah, because they let the show get in the way of the game. Then Kyle in 2019 said, we're going to put all the BS aside and just make it about football. 30-12, and they ran the last 9 minutes and 3 seconds off the clock because they were the better team. And they just focused on football, not on the show. So I think Michigan football could actually use, in this moment of their program, some of that focus rather than making it about all of the circus that goes around it. But it doesn't bother me because the number one thing Michigan football needs right now is authenticity. It's what helped Jim, and I think it's what's going to help Kyle.
Well said, Tony. Have a great call in El Paso, and we'll chat again soon. Thank you.
For everything. Hi, man. Thanks so much, brother. Be good to yourself. Thanks for having me.
Tony Parks, voice of the Salt Lake Bees, who unfortunately are not the Dirty Sodas tonight, as they are on Wednesday nights when it's a home game. Bees in El Paso. Great stuff from Tony, as usual. By the way, you heard me asking about Jacob Misiorowski, the Miz. It's a lot easier to refer him to that way. He's not the Miz from professional wrestling or the Miz from the old MTV days. He's a new Miz. The man has an absolute rifle for an arm. He threw, already this year, 66 100-mile-an-hour pitches in one game. He has multiple games where he's thrown 50 or more 100-mile-an-hour pitches. He has thrown more than 400 total this season, over 100 miles an hour. There are guys who go an entire career without ever hitting 100 on the gun. 105.5 is his record velocity so far this year. How long does it take a ball leaving his hand at 105.5 miles an hour? This is the word problem that your math teacher used to give you to stump you on the test. James, the distance from mound to plate?
It's
60 feet, 6 inches?
That's right, 60 feet, 6 inches.
At 105.5 miles an hour? How much time is that? James will do the math and we'll report back. And we're definitely not just plugging it into a computer. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Go grab a friend. You know what? Better yet, grab 3 friends. Carpool out just off I-80. Head west, young man. Haven't you been told? There's a wonderful place for you to golf. It's called Stansbury Park Golf Course. It's out in Tooele County. It's a great excuse for you to go explore Tooele County, which is not the same Tooele County your grandpa knew, all right? There's a lot of good stuff out there, great restaurants, a lot of more interesting activities than there used to be, including Stansbury Park Golf Course. $45 for a round of 18 on a weekday, $50 for a round of 18 on a weekend. Rent some clubs if you need them, rent a cart, and get out there and just enjoy it. It's not as crowded as the courses here in the Valley, so your pace of play is going to be a lot better. You can speed it up if you want to. You can have a more relaxed approach if you want to. Tell them OC sent you. They're going to take extra special care of you. Great rates, gorgeous greens, minutes away. StansburyPark.gov/golf course. That's StansburyPark.gov/golf course. Enjoy your round and tell me how it goes. Text me. Let me know how you shot out there at Stansbury Park. You didn't know that you were tuning in to Sports Science today, but I got on a tangent about Milwaukee Brewers pitcher ace Jacob Misiorowski, who has thrown a bunch of 100-mile-an-hour heaters this year. And his record velocity so far, I just told you, 105.5. And I asked James to do the calculation on how long it takes a pitch to leave his hand, travel 60 feet 6 inches to the plate. How long does a batter have to decide whether or not he's swinging and to execute the swing on a 105-plus mile-an-hour pitch in Major League Baseball?
I've got it for you in terms that you're absolutely going to understand.
Okay.
Less than 1,000th, or a little over 1,000th of a mile per hour.
Oh, okay. That's not exactly what I was going for.
I followed your instructions exactly. I did not just Google how long did it take for a 100-mile-an-hour pitch to reach home plate. Okay, and that's what I got. Okay, so
okay. All right.
You can't be mad at me because I did what you asked. Okay?
I just closed my eyes and concentrated and was able to do the complicated calculation on the back of my eyelids. And what I came up with was it's about 0.39 seconds from the time the ball leaves his hand until it crosses home plate.
Is that easier to understand than what I said, though?
Less than half a second. Okay? Now, for most Major League Baseball players, the act of actually swinging a bat takes about 0.2 seconds. So half of the time is spent executing the swing, which means they have 0.2 seconds to decide whether or not they're swinging on that pitch. 0.2 seconds is half as long as it takes for you to blink your eyes. The human reflex, the average human reflex, like if you hear an explosion, if there's a loud bang, if there's a flash of light, the average person reacts to that in 0.15 to 0.4 seconds. So your completely involuntary nervous responses are maybe fast enough to get a swing in on the fastest pitch that he has thrown this year.
I would love to hear Dave Roberts, Aaron Boone, Chad Tracy, shout out Red Sox, let's go. I would love to hear a manager or one of their hitting coaches explain how they try to teach their hitters to react that quickly to one of the Miz's flamethrowers, literally flame-throwing pitches.
And look, hitting a fastball at 98 miles an hour is not much better, but at 105.5, it becomes, according to this math, like almost physically impossible. You have to start swinging before he pitches the ball. Like, you definitely have to start your swinging motion. You definitely have to, like, have it loaded up, already have stepped, and then maybe you make the decision to bring the bat around with just enough time to get the barrel on that thing. And, of course, there's an immense amount of energy in that when And so if you do hit it, it's going to go. It might break your bat. It's going to go. But what a crazy – I mean, being able to throw 105 miles an hour is like being 8 feet tall in NBA basketball.
Yeah, and you said it. The time it takes to blink is about 0.4 seconds.
So it takes 0.3 to 0.4 seconds. At people's eyes, obviously, everyone's different.
So the Miz's 105 mile an hour fastball is potentially a little bit faster than a human blinking.
That's so if you
that's
blink,
insane.
If you blink, right? We always do this in sports, like, hey, don't blink. This fight will be over if you blink. Don't get up, right? It's literal in this case, where if he is in his windup and his hand reaches the apex of his throwing motion and releases, and you blink, the ball will be in the catcher's mitt when your eyes open.
What an advantage that is for the Brewers and for the Miz, right? Like when he's on the mound. And I've always been a guy, and Dan Patrick is good about this. He talks about, are you a thrower or are you a pitcher? And I've always leaned towards I want my best pitchers on the Red Sox or anyone on their favorite team should want their best pitcher to be a pitcher, not just a guy who can throw hard.
Sure.
But in the case when you break it down like that, like what's wrong with the guy who just can throw hard?
And in this case, it's the sustainability of it.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Like there are pitchers.
Is he going to last like one more year?
Nolan Ryan he threw heaters like crazy, right? And somehow his arm held up for years and years and years.
His were like 10 miles an hour slower than this, though, believe it or not. Is the reputation of Nolan Ryan, you'd think he was throwing 100 miles an hour every time. He wasn't, right?
Let's see. How many 100-mile pitches did Nolan Ryan throw?
While you're looking that up, it's potential that he didn't.
Comprehensive pitch tracking and high-speed radar data were not recorded during every pitch of his career.
I was going to say it's potential that his era was too early for us to really know.
Modern estimates, experts calculate that if his famous 1974 pitch, where he was clocked at 100 miles an hour, 100.8 miles an hour, playing for the California Angels against the Chicago Red Sox, he was clocked at 100.8 using an experimental system and setting a Guinness World Record. Obviously, the technology is way better now.
Yeah.
So you're getting like it's real 105.5.
So that was probably obviously that was the Guinness World Record, but probably the first pitch over 100 miles an hour in Major League history that they were able to measure.
That's the fastest he ever flew officially.
Okay.
There are some analysts who estimate that pitch used on the modern day speed testing system would have clocked in at 108 miles an hour.
Oh, dang.
Which is just ridiculous. But that's an estimate, right?
That's speculative.
It's speculative. We don't have real data on that. But anyway,
and we're getting
the Miz.
We're getting a Little League World Series time, and one of my favorite things, because the mound is shorter, is shorter distance between the mound and home plate. The whole field is smaller in Little League, of course, is the Major League equivalent, like reaction time. So you see like over 100 miles an hour. They're throwing like 70. They're really throwing 70 from however far away the mound is to the plate. So the reaction time is the equivalent to, in that case, to over 100 miles an hour. So we're getting into that time of year where that's back in our lives a little bit with the Little League World Series.
So if I were the Miz, if I was Jacob Mizorowski, right, what I would do is I'd walk up behind people and scare them all the time, and then get people to jump, and be like, guess what? Your reaction time on that, same amount of time it takes one of my pitches to reach a catcher's mitt.
That should be his thing. Just always trying to startle people and be like, yep, you wouldn't have been able to catch up to my fastball.
Sorry,
I was a little too slow.
You couldn't hit my pitch.
Oh, my gosh.
That's legitimately crazy stuff.
And this is why it's so rare for someone who throws that hard to be a starting pitcher like the Miz, right? That what we talked about the longevity. How many years, how many games can a human stand? Can the human body withstand that kind of high heat, right? That kind of velocity, that kind of pressure that is absolutely being put on parts of the body, the shoulder, the arm, all those muscles. That's why you've got the Aroldis Chapman who's throughout his career has regularly thrown over 100 miles per hour. He's not quite there anymore. He's still high 90s, right? But but he's a closer. He's only doing that for 20 to 40 pitches a game, and he's not playing every game. This is a great experiment. The great experiment with Jacob Misiorowski. Can a starting pitcher hold up for numerous years, several years, throwing that hard?
So the advanced pitch tracking era in Major League Baseball began in 2008. So we're almost 20 years into this thing. How many 100-mile-an-hour pitches do you think have been hit for home runs since 2008, in 18 years? It's not zero. It's not like...
Is it like 80?
It's 92.
Okay.
So fewer in almost 20 years, fewer than 100 pitches that are thrown at 100 miles an hour have been put out of the yard by a batter.
Okay, but how many of those are doubles? Okay, like not a home run's not the only thing that can hurt you. OC.
Okay, the fastest pitch ever hit for a home run was 103.9 miles an hour. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. hit it off of Mason Miller.
Shout out. Yeah, how many of those are sac flies that turned into a run? Sac fly RBIs. Okay, that's pretty damning if you're a pitcher, just like a home run. Okay.
So never mind. You don't need to hit. You don't need to throw that hard. Then it's not going to do anything good for you anyway.
No, because you're still getting lots of damage. Singles. Hey, a few singles in a row. That's a run right there. Okay.
My guy Kurt Suzuki once hit a 102-mile-an-hour pitch off Aroldis Chapman all the way back in 2016. Took
really?
that 1 yard. Good job, Kurt.
Is that, depending on the time of year, that was either Yankees Aroldis Chapman or Cubs Aroldis Chapman on that World Series team?
That's June 18th, so he would have been.
Okay, so I think he was still with the Yankees before they traded for him.
All right.
But anyway, it's a famous World Series team, Cubs World Series 2016. Is it your guy, Kurt Suzuki? Do you know him? Is this
no? He's a Minnesota Twin.
Oh, he was a Twin at the time.
Yeah,
okay. I remember him on the A's. I didn't remember his Twin stint. Okay.
Also, before we take a break and head into hour two, about 15 minutes late, going back to the initial segment of the show, we were talking about unsportsmanlike conduct penalties that are going to be issued in college football this year. The throat slash has been a flag for a long time. And now they're bringing in the nose wipe.
The throat slash, that's an obvious violent gesture, absolutely.
Somebody on the text line explained that a nose wipe is taking someone out or eliminating an op, which the cool kids
opponent.
The cool kids slang will tell me the ops is anyone against you, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And James, you looked it up. It's apparently related to gang signs. You'll be shot.
Don't do this in the wrong part of Pennsylvania, okay? From a 2019 Reddit thread. That was my favorite response from that.
So if you're in the wrong neighborhood, don't be wiping your nose, okay?
In this specific way. And
don't do it on a football field, or you're going to get a 15-yard penalty and unsportsmanlike conduct.
I did a little bit more, look, shout out to Urban Dictionary. Apparently, and the second one of the other responses in the Reddit thread alludes to this too. It's can be a greeting. It's a somewhat common greeting among gang members, which is not necessarily a violent greeting. It's just like, "What up, bro?"
Wait, they wipe each other's nose, or
no?
They
do it on
nose.
They do it on themselves.
They
call it slime, and then SLAT is slime.
So stupid.
Which is an acronym that the slime is in there. So it's like slime love all the time or something. So
attention, gang members, that's stupid. Okay.
Don't go to the wrong part of Pennsylvania now, OC, now that you've said that.
Attention, gang members. That is a dumb way to greet your friends.
But I'll say this. There's also lots of things in the Google search where people have said it doesn't really, most of the time, it doesn't mean anything gang-related now. Okay, and it's because it's just a celebratory gesture, which I'm like, yes, well, duh. It's a celebratory gesture because you've seen your favorite football players do it now for however many years, and you're like, oh, that must be a cool way to celebrate. So that doesn't mean that it's not originally a gang sign, and that the NFL shouldn't be trying to keep that, and college football shouldn't be trying to keep that away from the field.
The nose wipe gesture is a hand movement where a player drags a finger or hand across their nose, popularized in hip-hop culture by artists like Young Thug and adopted as a touchdown celebration by NFL players like CeeDee Lamb. It is tied to slang meaning to wipe or neutralize an opponent. The NFL officially categorized the nose wipe as a violent gesture under its unsportsmanlike conduct rules, carrying a 15-yard penalty. Cultural context. League executives noted the gesture is affiliated with gang signs historically associated with the Bloods, indicating someone is untrustworthy, and street slang popularized by rap music. All right, nose wipers. You win. We have to take it out of the game because of you.
Yeah. So I'm just saying the whole why are you guys making like this a big deal? Like, it's just a celebratory gesture. Yeah, but it's not. It's only recently been a celebratory gesture because they've decided we're going to use it after we score touchdowns and sack people. Like, that's not the original meaning behind it.
How mad are you if you're CeeDee Lamb and you come up with your own, like whether you stole it from hip-hop or gang culture or whatever, you come up with your own unique touchdown celebration.
Yeah, he's the originator.
And now the NFL's like, that's illegal. You're like, what? This is my thing.
I mean, it's like we, even in St. George, Utah, where there is little to no gang activity, the school resource officer, the school cop was always talking to kids who wore a Raiders jersey to school. Like, it's that kind of innocuous stuff that, like, law enforcement is like, some parts of the country, some parts of the world, that's associated with gang culture, and so you're not allowed to wear it.
Good reason to never be a Raider fan. PSA to all you people out there.
Yeah.
All right, got to take a quick one. We have some sound from Utah football camp. We didn't give it to you yesterday. We have Morgan Scally and Bird Ficklin. We'll make sure to give you Morgan. If we have time, we'll get to Bird. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show with some Utah football camp sound. Here is Morgan Scally. It's also available at ESPN700sports.com.
Morgan, how was the first week for camp, plus with the pads and everything with your team?
Pleased with the first week. Talked about getting pads on, seeing who's who. Very, very pleased with the physicality. Love it. Love the progress of the offensive defensive line, how competitive we are. We got to do it without being combative. There's a type of nasty you have to have, and you don't necessarily have to be friends all the time, but we got to get to the party healthy. So I love what I'm seeing in terms of just the toughness. Here, you're also working situational football a lot of the time, some 2-minute drills, some 4-minute drill, different stuff you're going to see in a game. We're not good enough in the 2-minute situation right now on offense, and we got to clean that up.
What kind of progress have you seen from the offensive line so far?
A ton of progress, much cleaner in terms of execution, less false starts, more working together, and I'd say, Kyle, you just look at the body compositions on these guys. They're a lot stronger, a lot tougher, a lot more durable. And so, Coach Gross, Coach Gerke, as well as Coach Saunders and his strength staff have done a great job getting those guys ready for fall camp. And it's showing up, particularly in 9-on, really it's the run game that you want to see these guys tee off and see how physical they are. So I'm loving what I see.
Ideally, when would you get those starting 5 on the line?
Ideally today, but it's a work in progress, and those guys know that they're continually competing. Once we feel like we've got the right 5, they'll know it, because it's important that those guys, gel. But right now we're not there.
Last week, Coach McGiven said the install was a lot better than it was in the spring. Just what did you see from, the offensive progression from, the end of fall or end of spring to now? I would
attribute it to those players getting together and going through their scripts together, making sure that you have leadership from the quarterback position and guys that are bought into getting better every day. So the reason for the better execution was what they did, during our time off as coaches and the player-led practices.
The competition behind Wayshawn Parker at running back, Steve Chavez Soto being key to that. What's going to be key to his development in locking down that RB2 spot?
Well, it's all their development. And each guy, Marky's done a great job of being clear with them on what he needs to see from them. Chavez Soto, it's maybe running a little bit more behind his pads, staying a little bit lower, a little bit more consistency, catching the ball. Same thing with Bam. Matiaki Helu is a guy that we've been waiting to get healthy. He's finally to that point, and so we'll see what he brings. He's a very hard runner, and I like what I see at Hunter Andrews. We're going to give some reps there at the running back position, give him a little bit of versatility. Add in there the ability to hand it to our rhinos. I'm putting that out there. I want to see Semi and Sione get the ball. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? But yeah, each one of those guys knows what they need to do to get better. And Bray, for that matter, Bray is a guy that wanted to be more of an every down back, and so he's got to continue to put on the weight and spend time in the weight room. All those guys understand, and it's made very clear to them what they need to do.
How much offensive line, what are you liking so far, and where they still need to improve?
I would say, the thing that both Inoke and Luther have been doing is making sure that, what happened last year with the run fits and all that stuff, we are working run fits every single day, and they're spending extra time in the film room, becoming, much more football intelligent, situational football. I love the toughness too. Some of those guys that were, Poo-Poo, Carsons, your younger guys last year, having to step up and take a leadership role. So just like the offensive line, you're kind of sitting there at the beginning of fall camp. What progress did we make? We made a ton of progress, and so can't quite tell you right now who those starting D tackles are going to be. There's a lot of competition at the DN spot as well, but we do have quite a bit of depth at the DN spot. D tackles where we're trying to create a little bit more depth.
Morgan, Coach Shaw talked a little bit about just Indiana being kind of a blueprint for success in the modern era of college football. I'm kind of curious, what have you kind of learned from their championship run that you want to apply to your own program here? I know that's kind of a macro question, but just what are your takeaways on that?
Well, I would say you want to be a complete team. The thing that you see with Indiana, they were very good offensively. You look at all their statistics, and they're sitting there really in the top 25 or top 12. If you're talking about making the playoffs, you're looking at your top 12 teams and what they're doing. Indiana is, not only were they efficient on offense, they were very stout and physical on defense, and on special teams. You look at punts blocked, you look at all the different special team statistics, and they're showing up in all those. Add to that, they're very disciplined. I think them and Ohio State were the only two teams in college football that were in the playoffs and had the least amount of penalties. The Indiana was I think one or two, I can't remember, but that, not only are they playing good football, they're disciplined. They are disciplined. They're not jumping off sides. They're not doing, stupid penalties that lose you games and ruin situations for you. So, that's what you want to see out of your team, is just complete football, playing tough, playing smart, and being disciplined.
Urban Meyer was here over, I think, on Friday or whatever. What was he? Why was he out here? What message did he share with the team while he was out here?
Oh, just that if you want to be elite, you have to focus on becoming elite at the hard things. It's not, if you're a wide receiver, the number one thing they wake up to is not, I can't wait to go block. They want to score touchdowns. So, it's understanding what are the hard things in my position that I'm asked to do, and focus on that every single day. Because if I can master the hard, right, then I'm much more of a complete player. So Coach Meyer obviously knows how to win football games, knows how to motivate football teams, and nothing but love for him and what he did for this university, did for me, and it was great to have him back.
Always great to hear from Morgan Scally. We will have more sound available on the website at ESPN700sports.com, on the ESPN 700 app. Camp coverage is brought to you by Senexel JBR, Beer Bar, Citron Cooperman, Big O Tires, your Utah Toyota dealers here on the home of the Utes, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Maybe the craziest story you are ever going to hear about a high school football practice. That's part of our daily dump. Coming up next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I know I can be prone to hyperbole. I know sometimes I say things here on the Sean O'Connell. You're not going to believe this. This is truly unbelievable. And it comes out of an Arkansas high school football practice. A place called Maumelle High School. Maumelle. Maumelle High School in Maumelle, Arkansas. A player practiced for almost an hour with a cottonmouth snake inside of his football helmet. Now, cottonmouths are highly venomous snakes. Like a lot of different snakes, they will find cramped spaces, warm spaces, dark spaces to hide themselves in. And he practiced. They're like, oh, okay, water break, takes his helmet off. There's a snake. There's a snake in my boot. There was a cottonmouth snake inside of his helmet. I am watching the video from the initial report out of KJNB-TV News in Arkansas.
Shout out.
Of this kid's helmet. They put it into a giant, bucket of water and held it down. It's like a Tupperware, one of those big Tupperware storage bins full of water. They then submerged the helmet in the water, and that's how they got the snake to come out of his helmet. Because obviously snakes can only hold their breath for so long.
Yeah, so this is not one of those water snakes that can swim really well either, I guess. So.
I mean, I think cottonmouths can swim well, but all snakes need to breathe air.
Yeah, they don't have gills.
They don't have gills.
Yeah.
And look, here it is, just slither. And it's not small like you would think, oh, a baby snake, of course, that can happen. I would not have thought a snake this size could fit under the padding of a football helmet.
So it's hiding under the padding. That's why the player didn't know there was a snake in his helmet?
Yeah, there's like the air bubble kind of things, and the pads have, by design, there's the hard shell, and then there's the adjustable padding that you can put in. And in the modern helmets, you can customize these things pretty much every way. So they've got all these interchangeable module style pads in there. And look, it's not a full grown cottonmouth. It's like probably 1.5 foot long at the most, but still, it's a pretty big snake to be fitting inside your Maumelle High School football helmet. It's looks like it's one of the Rydell's. So check your helmets, kids. That is absolutely bananas. There's photos of what it looked like with the snake curled up in there, and you could see, between the padding, you see, snakeskin, right?
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, I suppose the danger was probably minimal because the helmet would have been so tight and the padding would have been so tight. It's not like the snake could move around a ton in there. So while it was on his head, I'm sure the snake was kind of trapped from moving, I think, not able to, get space to strike with its venomous fangs, but I don't really know.
And this is when you said, because I don't know, I don't have a lot of snake knowledge, so I didn't know what a cottonmouth snake was. When you said this is a venomous snake, this isn't like your garter snake that we see around here sometimes in our backyard or whatever. That if you're afraid of snakes, you're gonna, like I am a little bit, you're going to get startled when you see it, but then you realize, oh, that's not poisonous, it's fine. This is a dangerous snake that's bigger than that, than what I'm talking about. And it's near your head. It's on your head.
On your head.
That is, that's terrifying. That's a nightmare. I guess you didn't know about it till the end of practice.
A cottonmouth or water moccasin snake. The bite is considered a serious medical emergency. Hemotoxic venom destroys tissue, damages blood cells, stops clotting. While deaths are rare with prompt treatment, delayed care can cause severe tissue destruction, permanent disability, or amputation.
Goodness gracious. You can't amputate someone's head, by the way.
You can't. Well, you can, but it's not a good...
You can't live from it.
It's not a good health outcome for people.
His cap was detained from his head.
And they are generally, they're like kind of a shorter and fatter type looking snake. But, yeah, very venomous. What happens if a cottonmouth bites you? You get necrosis of the flesh. You might lose your finger. You might lose your arm, or you might lose your head.
Well, and if I don't know how many cases there are of a cottonmouth snake biting someone on top of their head, on their skull, basically. Like, it's got to be the timing of needed care, how prompt the care needs to be has got to be a lot quicker. It's got to be like Jacob Mizorowski, reaction time kind of speed to care in that case, I would think. Because it's right, that's your brain, basically, that it's biting.
Don't Google cottonmouth snake bite damage. Don't go to the images section there.
Just for no reason at all, that just popped into your head to not Google that. You didn't just Google it yourself.
Don't Google it. It's gross. All right. Well, check your helmets, I suppose. I need to look up where Maumelle, Arkansas is.
I love that it's like the bull of high school names, where it just sounds like it's the same word twice.
Maumelle is northwest of Little Rock. Not that far off. Not that far away from Little Rock. So, I mean, I'm sure in Arkansas you can find some places that are like in the sticks, you know?
Yeah. Little Rock capital, right? You can find some care if you're close to Little Rock, I would think, pretty quickly.
I once had to fly to Little Rock, Arkansas to get to Tulsa for Christmas because it snowed in Tulsa, and they don't have snowplows in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So they shut down the airport. Well, my parents are from Iowa, and my dad's just like, just fly to Little Rock. I'll come pick you up. So
you've been there once? Been to the airport? By the way, Little Rock, the alma mater, Arkansas Little Rock of favorite jazz man of all time, Derek Fisher.
Okay.
Did you see he was recently in the news because he offered an explanation of what?
Why are you retelling that story, Derek Fisher?
Just dumb.
And
he did it on a player. He did it on a player-hosted podcast, Dude. So it's a safe space because the guy's not going to ask for They're not going to ask follow-up questions. They're just going to be like, "Oh yeah, that's totally true."
Yeah, and he said he walked away from like $27 million in order to do it.
Sure.
Like, yeah,
sure, Derek.
Comes a fishtail.
Hey.
Anyway, that's the fun news out of Arkansas here in the Daily Dump. This was a story from, I think, last Friday, but I want to bring it back because it's a really creative and fascinating way to drum up interest for a program in college football that needs to drum up interest. I'm sure you saw this, James. I'm sure a lot of you out there maybe heard about this. Akron University. Is it Akron University or University of Akron? The Zips, okay? The Zips, by the way, use a kangaroo mascot in Northeast Ohio, which is fantastic. I don't know why they decided on that, but I'm glad that they did.
University of Akron.
Okay, University of Akron is raffling off the right to script an opening series of plays, of offensive plays, to season ticket holder. Joe Moorhead, the former offensive coordinator at the University of Oregon, is now the head coach there. Joe Moorhead is like, he did his like rapid ascent to glory. Didn't work out all that well when he got his first head coaching position. He kind of bounces back to Akron. Akron is a mid-level MAC team. It's pretty low stakes. If you win 8 games there, people are going to love you, right? But they have their football budget last year was $8 million. And this is a fundraiser opportunity. You can buy more raffle opportunities to get your name drawn out of the hat as a season ticket holder to have 2 days worth of access to camp, to practice, game prep. I shouldn't say camp. It's game prep week, right? You're going to be in the coaches' meetings if you want to be there. You're going to be on the practice field if you want to be there. And you're going to be given the offensive playbook, and you get to help script the plays for the opening series. They're actually going to do this. At first, Joe Moorhead was just like, I don't want to do that. And then they were like, no, coach, we need to bring some more money into this program. We need to get people talking about it. And he eventually jumped on board and really didn't just say, okay, reluctantly I'll agree to this, decided it was a great idea. And for better or worse, it worked because there's absolutely no other situation in which Akron is going to be talked about in a football preseason where everyone is just like, oh my gosh, what's happening at Ohio State? What's happening with USC? What's happening with Alabama? What is Georgia going to be this year? Lane Kiffin's at LSU. Texas Tech is doing their thing. There's no reason, there's no room, there's no oxygen for Akron to be talked about at all, except if you do something that is this outlandish and this out of the ordinary. And they are going to give it like a real college try. Whoever wins this raffle is going to have access to the team and is going to have access to the playbook and is going to be able to sit there. And they're playing against, I think it's Robert Morris. It's a D2 team. So you're going to win. No, it's an FCS team. You're going to win.
Yeah, because Akron's a MAC team, right?
They're a MAC team. And they're kind of middle of the pack.
FBS. So, they should win that game.
They should win that game. It's designed, I mean, it's just like, it's still designed to be a win for you. So it's not like you're doing this in a game against, it's not like Utah BYU. You get to go script some plays. They should be able to do anything on that opening series and still win this game. But that is a really cool experience for whatever season ticket holder fan gets to do it. And Joe Moorhead has maintained ultimate veto ability. He can say, no, we're not running that play.
Not doing a flea flicker on the first play.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? Most people, most season ticket holders at any university would pay just for the opportunity to sit and talk with the coaches about the opening script. Not even to be like, I get to call the plays, I get to decide. How great would it be to sit down with Kevin McGibbon or to sit down with Colton Swan or to sit down with Morgan Scally and just be like, this is what I think we should do against whoever, right? And it would be more fascinating if it was not against Idaho or if it was not against, like, do this for the Arkansas game. How much money could Utah raise with something like this for the Arkansas game? Like, hey, you get 2 days of full access to practice. You get to sit in the coaches' meetings. They are going to ask you questions. They're going to say, what do you think we should do here? And most of the time, you're probably going to say the wrong thing. Most of the time, they're going to be like, that was dumb. No. Right?
They're going to be like, you know what? That is a fun play, but we found that this is more reliable.
Okay. 877-353-0700. Not even the opening series, okay? First 4 plays in the playbook, you get to call them for the Arkansas game. I'm throwing the Idaho game out. I want a little bit higher stakes, okay? Arkansas game. Here's what I'm doing, all right? Dive to Semi Talonga, play number 1, okay?
First play of the game. Let's go.
Play number 2, we go jumbo. You get both rhinos in there, okay? And you put Wayshawn behind them, and you run off tackle with Wayshawn 2.5 yards, all right? First play was 2.5 yards. We're now 3rd and 5, baby. I got my rhinos in, okay? I am now going to put Hunter Andrews in the backfield. I'm going to split Devin
as a third rhino, if you will.
Hunter Andrews is in the Wildcat formation, okay? I'm putting Devin Dampier out there. You know what? Scratch that. Hunter Andrews starts split out like he's lining up in the slot, okay? Devin Dampier is a shotgun quarterback. Devin Dampier comes in the line of scrimmage, makes some gesture, says a couple of words. We shift the formation. Hunter Andrews comes in. He is now the Wildcat quarterback in a shotgun formation. Devin Dampier replaces him. Now Devin Dampier is in the slot. Hunter Andrews is going to take the snap. He is going to stutter step forward like he's following some lead blocking situation, and then he is going to hit Devin Dampier down the seam for a touchdown. We don't even need 4th down because I just scripted a 3-play touchdown drive with rhinos in, and Hunter Andrews throwing the first touchdown pass of his career. Let's go, baby.
I think I would.
And guess what? I didn't even have to pay for it. You're welcome, Kevin McGibbon.
Yeah, we know you're listening, and we know you're taking notes. Absolutely. I think I would do Rhino and both quarterbacks in for every play of the first series.
Okay, can you make that work mathematically? Okay, both Rhinos are in. Bird and Dev are in.
One's lined up as a receiver. One's in the backfield as the quarterback.
Yeah, you can make it work. You got your 5 starting linemen. All right. By the way, in my script, Kelvin Obot is your starting left guard. It goes Zaraway Williams, Kelvin Obot on that side. You're probably running behind those two.
Let's go.
All right, I'm saying freshman, you're supposed to be that dude. Let's see if you are. But I'm giving you a little bit of help because we got the Rhinos following you through.
And we're not putting you at tackle, putting you at guard.
You're protected a little bit. You're not out there on an island.
It's being crazy about this true freshman,
Even on the pass play, it's run blocking action from you. You're going to fire out like you're run blocking, okay? We're not asking you a lot right now. This is, okay, so you're welcome, Utah football.
I would love to do the old double pass with both quarterbacks in the game, something like that.
Why are you stopping at a double pass, James?
Let's do a triple pass.
Why not triple? Devin Dampier to Bird Ficklin. Bird Ficklin back to Devin Dampier. And now Devin Dampier downfield to, let's say, Larry Simmons.
Or to Bird Ficklin, who's come out. And then Bird catches it and hook and ladder to Larry Simmons, who runs it in the end zone, baby.
I'm sorry, Arkansas. You are not stopping those plays.
You're not equipped for what Mac G's got for you, okay?
And by the way, if Utah did something like this, the ultimate bidding war on who's going to get this experience is just who wants to pay more for it than I am willing to for content for the show. That's the that's what it is.
You're like, and I got a pretty big line of credit, so watch out, people.
And Deloy Hansen, I stole a credit card out of his car, so we're just going to slap that thing down. I don't know.
Allegedly.
I mean, this
didn't actually happen.
I know it's a gimmick, right? I know that Akron is doing this to grab a little bit of attention. But if you just allowed people to pay for exclusive experiences and increased access to the football team, it would raise money. You're selling out in a way that people are not comfortable with. But guess what? Everybody on some level in college football right now is selling out. They're doing the private equity thing. They're doing the exploration of private equity. They're selling out to sponsors and putting jerseys on the patches on the jersey that they were like, I don't know if I really want to do this, but we kind of have to do it. The Monster Energy Big 12 football season tells you that we are all selling out on some level. This is in my opinion, a lot more interesting way of selling out than putting Monster Energy on everything.
Yeah, and in particular, this would go to a season ticket holder that's not necessarily already at practices because, inside baseball, some of the donors get to be at every practice and on the sidelines and stuff. This would be a truly unique experience for a season ticket holder that doesn't ordinarily get that kind of access.
Also, you know what? It would be a great way for coaches to prove their point to the big, big, big donors who want to have influence, right? Just be like, okay, here, script your plays. And they're just like, crap.
Yeah, if they did
I don't know.
Open it up to that part of the fan base, absolutely.
I mean, I love the idea. In low-stakes environments, why not? You remember there was a league that tried to start. It was like an indoor football league that tried to start where the fans could vote on the next play. It never happened. It never got traction. That was too much. But the fan interaction thing is, on some level, it's the future of sport. You have to find a way to make it not harm the competitive integrity of the game. So, actually letting fans call plays doesn't make sense. But if you look at the fine print on this Akron thing, they don't actually get to call the play. Joe Moorhead gets to call the plays. It's his show.
The coaches get to heavily influence this with okay, see where you're going there.
It's not like you get
what
to
about
draw
this?
up plays. You don't get to create your own plays, although I should be allowed to.
someone with your kind of football knowledge, that's not the person that's going to be in the Akron coach's room. They're not going to have the kind of knowledge that you have.
You effectively you're playing the NCAA football video game, right? Where the play is already, you have the playbook. You go and select the play you want them to run.
Yeah.
And then it runs, right?
And if you don't know, you can ask Madden / Kevin McGiven. Like, you know what? Ask Coach Mac G.
I mean,
other Coach Mac.
Just the educational, experience here of sitting in, you know what? I've been around college football my entire life, basically. You know what I have never been able to do? I have never sat around the table with offensive line coach, wide receivers coach, running backs coach, offensive coordinator, head coach in a game planning meeting. I've never done that. I would pay money for that. I've sat in the next meeting where they deliver that information to the team and they tell you what's going to happen, but I have never been there when they're actually hatching the plan. That would be amazing. I like what you're doing, Akron. It's a great story for the Daily Dump, brought to you by our friends over at Valley Plumbing. The truck with the duck can handle your plumbing, your drain cleaning, your excavation needs. Go to valleyplumbing.com, get on the schedule without even making a phone call. Reminder to all of you out there that have kids going back to school, especially my kids start school next week. The Road Home has families, about 200 kids right now staying at the Road Home properties. They need help with back-to-school clothes, shoes, backpacks, and more. We are inviting you to be a child's advocate. Donate now. Visit ESPN700sports.com, AppleTreeForKids.com, or Advocates Donations on Venmo. Another reminder, this is the time of year where the temperature and the weather is going to start getting a little bit unpredictable, okay? Which means one day you're going to have your air conditioner on. The next day, you're going to have to turn on the furnace. Unless you've got an energy-efficient home that traps your air in, that traps the climate-controlled air in the way that you want it to. And if you want an energy-efficient home, you have to have energy-efficient windows. And if you want energy-efficient windows, the best place to get those is Advanced Window Products. Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, and the crew right here in Salt Lake City are going to take you through the sales quote, the whole process of manufacturing, the installation, the warranty, all here in state, not even in state, in town, right here in Salt Lake City. Process 6 to 8 weeks from that first visit to when the windows are actually installed. And boom, you've got a better looking house. You've got a more energy efficient house. You've got a house with higher resale value. You've got brand new vinyl replacement windows from the #1 replacement window company in the state of Utah. Right now, they're offering $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more. They can also help you out with the window coverings. It is a one-stop shop with financing options available. Give them a call at 801-850-9100. Get on the schedule now and tell them OC sent you. We're going to double up here. Dan Sorensen on a Ute Zone Wednesday next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. On Wednesday action coming at you. We welcome Dan Sorensen, publisher of UteZone.com, Utah Insider. Hello, Dan. How are you?
Living the dream, OC. Football season is almost here. There's a lot going on up at the U, and fans have reasons to be excited. So can't really ask for more, at least in August.
I just went on a random rant about a story coming out of Akron University. I'm sure you saw this, that they're raffling off an opportunity to script an opening series for the team. And, Joe Moorhead, the coach, is going to have final veto power on whatever plays this season ticket holding fan comes up with. But I actually really love the idea, especially for a place like Akron, who's doing anything they can to get some attention, to get some buzz. And I can't help but put it in a Utah context. I mean, I don't know what people would be willing to pay. I don't know how many people would be willing to participate in a raffle just to have the access promised by this Akron thing. They're going to get a couple of days at practice in coaches' meetings. They're going to be sitting down with the guys that are actually scripting and calling the plays. They get to have input on that. It's half tongue-in-cheek, but I do think it'd be a good fundraising effort. If you were going to script some opening plays, I said against Arkansas, I want it to be high stakes. I don't want it to be against Idaho. Against Arkansas, could you script an opening series that you think would be positive on the offensive end?
Me, I know enough to know that I know nothing, so I wouldn't be comfortable with that. Look, if it was against Idaho, I'm a deranged person, so Semi Talonga would get every touch.
That's what I said. I want that even against Arkansas, Dan. I said, let's go. Give it to Semi.
Give it to Semi. Let him create. I love it. But, yeah, look, it's there is so much that goes on in terms of frankly, it's one of the things I'm most fascinated about in the sport of football. It's really fun when you're at the games. Like, don't even watch what's going on the field. Just watch the sidelines and getting guys on and off the field and getting the play called and all of those adjustments. It's so much chaos that goes on within that 35 seconds before the ball needs to be snapped that when you think about it, it makes your head hurt. Like, it's a minor miracle that these games look as smooth as they do. So, yeah, the idea of scripting stuff out, look, with a guy like Dev, lots of read option stuff like that, and you're probably pretty safe. But I love the idea, and especially the idea that somebody can get exposure to, yes, it raises funds for the program, but they can get exposure to the coaches and the why behind things, like how they think about things, what they're actually looking for. But yeah, football is a far more complicated game for me to be competent at anything other than doing something deranged like four verts every play or Semi Talonga is the star.
That's exactly what I would do, and then I would just trust that Kevin McGivern could make up for my irresponsible ways for the rest of the game. You know what I mean? That's why I need it to be an opening series. In all seriousness, let's dial it into some serious conversation about this Utah football camp. In week 2 now, midweek 2, and, we heard positive feedback from the coaching staff and from players about how week 1 goes. Now urgency gets ramped up, right? As the bodies get more and more beat up and more sore, you got to practice even better. You got to be even more technical, even more sound. There's less time between now and when you kick off. The position battles need to be figured out in the next 10 days or so that you can get to real game planning. Does it feel for you like Utah is on the correct pace in those regards?
Absolutely. And you can get it in the sense that of the interviews with Coach Scally. We get him once a week basically, and then we get players once a week on offense, once a week on defense. And as you're talking to these guys, it really does feel like things are coming together. And the nice thing is, every once in a while I get an opportunity to get one-on-one with a player, and of course I will ask them every question I possibly can on and off the record to get the information on what's going on. But the sense that I'm getting is that guys really feel ready and they feel up to the challenge and it's dependent upon the position groups in terms of kind of what the attitude is. You talk to the offensive linemen, and they're excited. Look, they got their first full contact padded practice just a couple of days ago. So now is when we're going to start to see guys really rise and separate both on the offensive and defensive lines, and they're able to hit each other. They're able to go full contact, and you can see how that strength and conditioning program over the summer really worked. But when you're talking to the players, it really does feel like they're getting dialed in. Yes, they know that there's competition, and it's very much may the best man win, and they want to get on the field, and so they're trying to go out and show their best. To your point, it's, we're far enough into it that guys are starting to feel the effects of playing football, and all those sequences of mini car crashes in the course of every play. And Rabbit Evans said something really interesting yesterday, where he talked about how, because of the strength and conditioning program, that he does not feel as sore or as bad as he normally would at this stage of camp. And so I think that they're handling the balance between getting as much contact as you can and full speed and game readiness versus keeping guys fresh and keeping guys healthy, and mixing it in with this whole, almost every position minus quarterback and running back. There are still battles going on for who's going to start, who's going to be in the rotation, how many reps are guys going to get. And that can be a really good thing or a really bad thing, depending on the context. The things that we're seeing and the things that we're hearing out of the team, it feels like it's more of a good thing type of thing, where there's talent and they're all pushing each other. And so it's the rising tide raises all boats type of scenario versus if you have, 4 quarterbacks, you have no quarterback scenario. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot that needs to be done, to your point, over the next 10 days for guys to really solidify themselves in roles and to step up and to start to gel. But the energy around this program, the work that guys are putting in, the types of things that they're saying, and the types of things that they're not saying in terms of when they say it and what their body language looks like, and, reading their eyes and stuff like that, it really does feel like they are on the right track. And if they don't screw things up, and if the offensive and defensive lines can really come together, this could be a really, really good football team.
Staying on, and I think you kind of already partially answered this question, maybe, but there's a couple of philosophies that we have seen Utah sort of move through in the Kyle Whittingham era, at least, where when practice gets hard, when the bumps and bruises start to mount, some guys will be shut down and protected. He's proven himself. We know how valuable he is. We don't need him to practice for the next 4, 5, 6 days. I don't think that's always been to the benefit of the player or to the team. The extreme other end of that is we're going to practice hard no matter what. And then sometimes guys get injured in hard practices, and then everyone questions whether or not they ever should have been practicing so hard. So you're kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't on that front. We've talked to guys, you've talked to guys that like practicing through the bumps and bruises. We've talked to guys that like to rest up and ice down and be like, let me, I'm a thoroughbred. Let me be ready for race day. As far as you can tell, as Morgan Scalley has taken the reins and is now several months into this, but only a week and a half into being a fall camp head coach, where is he going to fall on that spectrum of guys that are in a little bit of pain, do have a bump or a bruise, still playing through it, versus, hey, we're going to shut you down and protect you and make sure that doesn't get aggravated?
Yeah, I mean, it is a fine line that you have to walk, and it's not always an easy answer. And we've seen in past years, the Florida opener a couple of years ago, where there were so many missed tackles because they went so light on the physicality in fall camp that guys weren't necessarily ready to go full speed, and it cost them in game one. And versus, to your point, just the injuries that we've seen and how snake bitten some of these teams in the last 5 years have been with injuries. I do think that we saw a pattern in the spring in terms of how they would leverage full contact versus not. And they would spread it out. So typically what we would see in the spring is there would be a full contact, full speed period, and then there would be less contact and allowing for some rest between those things. So they're trying to get the best of both worlds, where they're having guys go full speed, they're having guys hit each other. This is a physical sport. You know, if you watch any of the social media stuff coming out at the beginning of fall camp, Coach Scally talking over and over again about physicality and toughness, and Zeraway Williams the other day talking about bringing out the nasty, you know, when they were able to finally get in full pads and hit. And so I think that there's still an expectation of that, and that they'll lean into, you know, it's football. You're going to have to play banged up, but they're going to try to be smart with it. And that recovery is just as important as the contact is. And one of the things that Coach Scally talked about in the offseason that was really interesting is when they talk about full contact, it's not necessarily hitting for hitting's sake, but it's about going full speed and taking the right angle at full speed and recognizing what those angles look like. And they're working on that hard. Rabbit Evans talked about that the other day, where the emphasis on tackling for the safeties and taking the right angle and learning how to come downfield and go full speed and make the difficult hit without putting yourself in danger and being able to kind of strike that balance. So I think that they really are trying to do both if they can. If you've got to err on one side, I think they're still going to err on the side of toughness and gut it out. I mean, these guys, they want to be on the field. They're not going to let little things and being banged up keep them off, especially if they're one of the exceptionally talented players. But the nice thing about this team as well is that there's enough depth that I don't think that they need to rely on a few stars like they might have last season or the season prior.
Dan Sorensen from Ute Zone is our guest here, talking a little Utah football as we march closer to the kickoff of the football season. We are, 17 days away now from the Week 0 games. We're 22 days away from Utah kicking off their season. And you alluded to this already. You have these position battles happening. Offensive line, we've talked about quite a bit. Safety, we've talked about quite a bit. As they're figuring things out, are we going to end up with rotations there? Even on offensive line, you usually settle on like 5 guys and ride with them as long as you can. Safety is one of those where I don't know if it's better to have 4 guys that are interchangeable and can play, or you really want 2 bona fide starters with obvious backups to spell them. Are any clarity in your mind on whether or not we're going to get, maybe an unconventional picture in those rooms, or we're going to get like the more, hey, these are your starters and these are your backups?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a mix. Obviously, when you just go down the line with the position groups, a group like the wide receiver, where everybody we're talking to is talking about how talented this group is. I think we're going to see a pretty broad rotation, as many as 6, 7, maybe 8 guys that they're getting on and off the field. And yeah, if there's a guy that's really overperforming, they're going to ride the hot hand. And I think that that's going to be the case across the board. But that's a group that you'll have a couple of established guys, but you're going to see a really heavy rotation. Safety is another good example. Their top 4, they're really talented. They could start, any of those 4 guys could start for a lot of teams around the country. And so it's a good problem to have. I think that they're going to try to keep guys fresh. And for those guys especially, it's going to be about who's executing, who's making the fewer mistakes. And as the season progresses, we might see them lock into 1 or 2 that are getting the majority of the reps. But if it works, they'll do the big rotation. I think D tackle is another one like that. I don't know that we're hearing about anybody that's really risen above the rest. I think that there's going to be a pretty solid rotation of 4 or 5 players. D end might be that way. Once again, it's going to probably be one of those hot hand situations where when guys show it on the field and really show up, if there's going to be a guy that breaks out like John Henry Daly did last year. And look, there was a little bit of buzz about him before the season, but it was really when the lights went on that he really started to shine. And so we might see that. And so it might be a game or two before we see those things get settled. But across the board, I think it's going to be more a rotation type situation than your active, solid starters, with the exception of Wayshawn Parker at running back, Dev as your quarterback, even though we're going to see plenty of Bird Thicklin regardless. And the offensive line, I think we're going to see 5 solid starters they're going to roll with 2 to 3 guys that we see regularly rotating in and out. And they did that last year, even with Toa came in and Keith Olson came in, and they played a lot of reps. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go that route where they've got the starting 5, and like if Kelvin Obot isn't part of that 5 or Ike Garcia isn't part of that 5, we're going to see plenty of those guys regardless. But it's offensive line, running back, quarterback. That's where we're going to see things that are more solid. And frankly, it's up in the air about who's going to start. And even a place like linebacker, where you got a couple of established seniors, they're getting pushed by the young guys, and the best guys are going to play. And it's a good problem for this Utah coaching staff to have.
I feel like I might be getting a little ahead of myself, and I don't want to do that, but Idaho starters versus Arkansas starters and BYU starters and rest of the season starters, are we still going to be figuring some things out in that Thursday night opening game?
Oh, without question. And I think that's going to be the approach. Utah should be so much more talented than Idaho and frankly, I think that the offense and the defense is going to be a little bit vanilla. They're not going to try to tip their hand to Arkansas, and I think that we're going to see a good mix of guys in and out. And frankly, even with the starters, I think they would love to have the starters out by halftime and get guys reps. And then Arkansas, I think, is going to be another story altogether. But I do think that we're going to see an evolution of what that lineup looks like, because there are so many question marks in terms of who's going to step up. The question isn't necessarily is there talent at the spot. I think that there is talent. It's about who's going to rise to the occasion, who's going to make the play when it counts, and who can be trusted. And as the season progresses, that's going to get tighter and tighter. And for groups like cornerback, where there are 6 really capable guys, we talked about the safety room, we talked about the wide receiver room, the tight end room that's so versatile. I think that those things are going to be solidified more in week 2 versus Arkansas, week 3 and beyond, than we might see in most seasons.
All right, I'm going to start doing this rude thing where I put you on the spot, and when we get more information and we get little glimpses, like actual practice availability the other day, that was cool. I had to watch it on the stream because I wasn't able to show up, but really neat that, when they set an expectation that you're not going to have access and then they do give you some access. I like that for Morgan Scally and company. These opinions can change, but as of now, who is the best defensive player on this football team?
Oh, that is a great question. As of right now, I think my guess is going to be Benny. I think that he had a breakout year last year, and we just talked about safeties and how they can roll guys in and out. But I just think that if he can show himself as a more reliable tackler this season, he's got a real shot at a high round NFL draft. And he's on a lot of boards already. So I'm not saying anything that's really controversial, but I think that he has a chance to be the best player on this defense.
Offensively, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Geez. I mean, Devin Dampier.
Now, look, I know automatically Dev is the most impactful, but is he the best? Is Wayshawn a better running back than Devin is than quarterback? Is there a wide receiver, or is there an offensive lineman? Last year, the best player on this team was Spencer Fano. Whether or not he was the most impactful, obviously, that's not the nature of his position, but he was the best offensive player on the team, and I think probably John Henry Daly ended up being the best defensive player, whatever. But is Devin Dampier, even though he's the headliner, is he the best offensive player on this team?
Yeah, I'm sticking with that answer, and for a couple of different reasons. So everybody that's close to Dev that you talk to will tell you over and over again that despite the fact that Dev had a great season last year, we have not seen the real Devin Dampier yet. He played hurt the entire year, and the program has talked a little bit about that. He's finally healthy. He's healthier than he's ever been. And I think that we're going to see a player that not only is dynamic, but I think that we're going to see an intelligence. So the thing that I was most impressed about with what he did last season was the fact that, look, the way that he cut his interceptions down, the way that he took care of the ball, when you'd see what he did in read option situations, I bet his correct decision rate was in the high 95 to 99% in terms of when to pull it, when to hand it, when to pitch it, that kind of thing. His command of the game and as the more experience that he gets and things slow down for him, I think that we're going to see just one of the more phenomenal quarterback performances that we've seen in program history. I think he's that good and that capable if he stays healthy and if he shows the command of the offense that we believe he has based on things that Coach McGivern said last week and other coaches have said. I just think that he's going to be the perfect distributor for this team and do a lot of dangerous things for opposing defenses. I cannot wait to see what a healthy Devin Dampier with all of the weapons around him looks like. I think that he's on the cusp of a very special season.
Well, that is certainly the hope for everyone out here. We did get to watch kickers work the other day. Are we confident that Dylan Curtis is going to be reliable in the field goal kicking game?
I think that we are. You know, we saw him hit a long one the other day. He had off-season surgery, so he wasn't able to participate in the spring. But look, he had his ups and downs last year, and that's not a surprise given the fact that, you know, it's a true freshman, and yes, he was a high school All-American, and he did some incredible things in his high school career. And I think that now that he's been through it, now that he understands what pressure looks like and what pressure feels like, that I think that he's going to be able to step up and really rise to the occasion. There's no question that he has a phenomenal leg. It's the consistency, especially on the long kicks, and that could, you know, it could make the difference between one or two different wins. And so I think that he's dialed in. Funny enough, most of the kicks that we saw the other day were from Tanner Cragen, and he looks really good as well. So I think that Utah is in a good spot when it comes to the place kicking position, and Curtis is a kid that has a ton of talent. One of the things I like the most, and it was something that Utah posted on their social media, was they talked about how they're going to live stream the kicking situations, and Scally is looking directly at Dylan and saying, you know, everybody's watching you, and everybody's going to know whether you missed or not, and really getting him used to the idea that he just needs to stay focused on those, you know, those 3 seconds of panic when the ball is snapped and you step up and you plant your foot and you drive through and you keep your head down and you keep that technique right. If you just stays focused on that, that's what really matters. And the fact that they're working on little things like that, I think is going to be really good for his development. And I'm excited to see what he can do this season.
Dan, I always appreciate your perspective. Thanks for all the work you're doing right now for those of us who don't get to attend the actual practices and so rely on your reporting. Thanks, man.
I appreciate it. And look, OC, I love our conversations, and I'll talk ball. We could talk ball all day long, but they don't pay us enough, so we can cut it off. But yeah, look, it's it's fun time. Everybody's still undefeated, and there's a lot of optimism, and there's reason for it. And I can't wait to see what happens in these games, because really at the end of the day, you can have all the good vibes, you can have all the optimism. None of those things ever got trophies in the trophy room. So they got to prove it on the field, and I can't wait to see how they respond and rise to the occasion on that front.
Anything special going on with Ute Zone? Any promos? Anything you want to shout?
Absolutely. We got 75% off an annual subscription. So it's like $30 for the whole year, less than $2 a month. We're the largest online community of Ute fans. Hashtag Team Fun all day long. It's a great community. Look, our reporting is what it is. It's the community that makes Ute Zone special. And so, yeah, if you're on the fence or if you haven't been with us for a while, it's an inexpensive way to join us, and it's going to be that way for the next couple of days. So jump on in.
Thanks, Dan. Talk again soon.
Talk soon. Thank you so much.
Dan Sorensen, publisher over at utezone.com, Utah Football Insider. And like you heard, right now is the time. Go subscribe. It's now on 3, but 75% off your first year with Ute Zone and on 3. Pretty cool that they're giving right before the season starts, they're giving a huge incentive like that one. All right, there's a lot of rumors, there's a lot of innuendo, there's some stuff swirling in Provo, and I want to talk about what this means, if anything, for Utah football. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Football season fast approaching. That means your tailgate parties are fast approaching. Your backyard cookouts are fast approaching. I've got a foolproof solution for you if you want to be the entertainer this year. If you want to step up and start to be the mom, the dad, the grandpa, the uncle that hooks everybody up with a great game day meal. Southern Steer Butcher down in Saratoga Springs, 1705 North Redwood Road. It really is foolproof because here's what you could do. You can go get that fancy, try to knock it out of the park, the tomahawk steak, dry aged, right? The crown roast, something complicated. And you could look up all of your stuff online. You can figure out how you're going to put your own signature on it as the chef, as the grill master, right? But because Southern Steer knows exactly how things work, they've also got in the back pocket for you, they've also got pre-made meals that you can secretly stock in the fridge. So if that home run swing ends up being a miss, they've got mealtime combos set aside that are fresh ingredients already put together. You just have to throw them in the air fryer, throw them on the grill, throw them in the oven, heat them up. I'm talking veggies, sides like mashed potatoes, appetizers like jalapeno poppers. They've got sampler plates. They've got charcuterie. They've got all the seasonings that you could ever imagine, salts, rubs, jams, salsas, marinades. It is a one-stop shop with an old-school family butcher vibe that's going to protect you from your own mistakes, but is going to set you up for success with the best cuts of meat that you can find. That's not just beef. That is chicken, poultry, pork, and a lot more. If you want some exotics, tell them what you need. Dan and Aubrey, I went down there, I talked to them. They said, look, if you're somebody who wants those meats that you can't really get in the grocery store, you can get them here at Southern Steer. And if there's something you're looking for that you can't find, let us know. We can source it. And they can source it clean, ethically, hormone-free, the kind of stuff you actually want to be feeding your family. Southern Steer Butcher, 1705 North Redwood Road. Family-owned business, like you're going back in time to the old butcher shop, but with all the modern amenities and all the convenience of being able to pick up ready-made meals on your way home from work or the lake or whatever. Things are interesting in BYU territory right now, right? We talked about the weekend rumors of Brian Santiago being separated from his duties as athletic director. That has not happened. That is not going to happen. That was just a rumor, right? You had Kalani Sitake with a really interesting conversation with Ben Criddle over on our sister station and talking about, basically the need for more resources. And look, some of Kalani's complaining, for lack of a better term, some of his concerns are more than warranted, right? Because you could look at BYU's own financial reports, and on the books, the disparity in spending between football and basketball is not what a football school should be doing. Then on top of that, you hear, and again, I don't want to give too much credence to rumors, on top of that, you hear that maybe some donations that were supposed to be earmarked for football got split with basketball, and there was a little bit of favoritism potentially shown on the basketball side, probably because it's easier to win in basketball, right? Great coach and 3 great players, and suddenly you're a factor in basketball. If that BYU team had stayed healthy this year, who knows what would have happened for them, right? They were taking a big swing, ended up being kind of a miss. And if you're the head football coach who is now expected to compete for championships in the Big 12, and you're supposed to keep up with the Joneses of Utah and of Texas Tech and of Arizona State and of Houston, it takes money. Now, BYU's done a great job of spending, and they've done a great job of spending on retention, but Kalani Sitake, and James just brought this up during the break, Kalani Sitake is never going to be in the position where he gets in front of a microphone and says, I don't need any more donations. I don't need any more support. I don't need any more money because we've got everything we need here at BYU. That is just not what head coaches can do. That's not what business owners do. That's not what
everybody
venture
needs
capitalists
more money.
do. We all want more money.
Everybody needs more money, and we need it all the time, every second of the day. Absolutely. And I brought that up to you off air. That's from Matt Brown, publisher of Extra Points, the great newsletter on college athletics. He was on with Spence Checketts yesterday, who's live from 2 to 6, of course. You can find the full interview of that at ESPN700sports.com if you missed any of that. But he when he brought up that point, I'm like, you know what? That's not being said enough or considered, I think, enough, because we have so much trust, and of course BYU fans especially have so much trust in the head coach of their football team, in this case Kalani Sitake, where it's like, well, of course he's not being disingenuous in any way here. And I'm not suggesting that he's lying for effect. What I'm suggesting, what Matt Brown is suggesting, is that they might be in pretty good shape financially with the football program, but he's never going to say, all we got to do is execute better. Well, we got enough money, let's just execute and win games. He's always going to ask for more money, which we got to consider here.
Perception is reality, and unfortunately for BYU, Kalani was able to flirt with Penn State this offseason and get a whole new perspective on what big-time spending in college football is. Kalani was pretty far down the road in those conversations where it was like, hey, we're going to pay you $9-10 million a year. We're going to give you a $9-10 million a year assistant coaches pool. We're going to give you this much in NIL. By the way, you can look up how much we're getting from the revenue share situation, how much we're getting from the television revenue. You can see these facilities, right? BYU, because they did a good job of hiring and being patient with Kalani Sitake, are now in a situation there. It's a blessing and a curse where you've got a coach who's done a really excellent job at a place that everybody in college football knows is a tough spot to win at. The obstacles that used to stand in BYU's way, extreme academic restriction, honor code, that kind of stuff, has been relaxed some, but not eliminated, right? And NIL has come in, and they've got a very healthy NIL program. NIL has come in and helped taken some of those pain points away, right?
Like it still might be painful for you, especially if you're not a member of the LDS Church, right? But we're going to pay you this much, so you can endure that for a couple of years, right? That kind of thing is healthy.
You can't sleep over at your girlfriend's apartment if you're a student here, but we're going to pay you $1 million to not sleep over at your girlfriend's apartment. A lot of people would be like, all right, I can do that.
I can do that for however long I need to, yeah.
Or, you know what? I can afford to buy a house now, so no one's really going to care if I'm just living in a neighborhood somewhere, right? I don't know how many of the athletes – I don't know how many of the athletes have to live in student-approved housing or in church-approved housing anymore. I don't know the details on that.
And the honor code applies wherever you're living.
Yeah. The honor code applies wherever you're living, but it's a lot more easily enforceable when you've got an army of snitches, which, by the way,
on campus for sure,
is no longer encouraged the same way it used to be on campus. So some of those pain points have gone away to some degree at BYU, but they're never going to be absent. And because of that, there are a lot of people in college football that see what Kalani is doing and what BYU is doing and saying, like, wow, they have made themselves into a factor nationally again, with some things stacked against recruiting at least, and look how well they're still recruiting. The job that they did in retention, I know Utah fans don't like hearing it. The job they did in retention, the fact that Faletau Satawala is still on that roster is absurd. That should not be the case. Now, there's a certain amount of buy-in that happens with the athletes. There's a certain amount of spending that happens from the boosters. But even with all that, he should be playing at Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan.
Should have followed Jay Hill,
Florida State, Georgia. Like, that dude is a first-round talent probably in the NFL eventually, and he's still at BYU. So give them credit where it's due. But Kalani Sitake came back after the flirtation with Penn State and said, I need this if I'm going to stay. And they said, all right, we're going to give you this. And if he doesn't believe that he's being given everything he was promised, that's why you're going to get some of that frustration. And Kalani's a really classy guy. He's always going to take the high road, and he was far from throwing anybody under the bus in that conversation. The reason it became newsworthy is because it wasn't all sunshine, rainbows, kumbaya, popcorn popping on the apricot tree type of positivity, right? It was reality from a head coach who is under an immense amount of pressure and is expected this year to be in the college football playoff. If BYU does not win the conference championship this year, then the only alternative that's acceptable to BYU fans is, well, we still got in because we lost the conference championship game to Texas Tech or whatever, but we were so good before that, we didn't play them in the regular season, so we were undefeated, so they still kept us in. I'm still a believer that the Big 12 is a one-bid league no matter what happens, but that's the expectation for Kalani. So he's under a lot of pressure right now. Of course he's going to say, I want more help, I need more help, we can get more help here. That's what he's going to campaign for. What does it really mean, though? Is he going to leave BYU because of this? I think we got the answer to that last year. BYU, while backward and old school in some ways, is a business run by people that are very, very, very successful. And the booster base, a lot of them are very successful and intelligent in their own right. And there's a recognition right now that Kalani Sitake is the dude that they need leading Brigham Young University football forward. Is he going to leave? Well, no. And if it really boils down to, if you are a subscriber to, hey, he can't stand Brian Santiago, who he doesn't report to, by the way, anyway. He reports to the university president. If it comes down to BYU has to choose one of those guys or the other, guess who they're going to choose? They're going to choose Kalani Sitake. You want to know how I know that? Because they just hired a backup for Brian Santiago. The BYU storyline on that is, as it should be, a positive one. Hey, we got this Kentucky associate athletic director with SEC experience who's had, children who've played at BYU, son-in-law played at BYU, like BYU connections in this family, obviously LDS, right? Like, this is someone who's a high-level sports administrator at the top levels of college football. Isn't it great to have two people who could run a program in one program? Yeah, that is great. You know when it's especially great? If you have to move on from one or the other.
When the quiet part of that hire is that Brian Santiago's reputation, he played college basketball. He's got a close relationship with Ryan Smith and the Ainges, Danny and Austin and the whole Ainge family, right? So his reputation is he's a basketball guy anyway. The hire that they just made was the guy who's over Kentucky football from an administrative standpoint. So that's the quiet part, and it could potentially be some writing on the wall that, hey, who knows when, if and when, but that guy might be the successor of BYU, the athletic director position, but we'll see.
There were a lot of people who thought it was going to be Chad Lewis.
Obviously, he's a football guy, too.
When Tom Holmoe moved on, there were a lot of people who said, this is Chad Lewis's job when he wants it. He's been groomed for it for years. Ended up being Brian Santiago. And I have no personal beef against Brian Santiago. I have no reason to think that he's not going to do a great job down there. But perception is reality. And if your head football coach's perception is that you're favoring the basketball program, and if the public's perception is you're more likely to favor the basketball program, and BYU football, which is the main economic driver of all things athleticism at BYU, if they don't get what they need, or if their coach comes out and says, I don't know if we're getting what we need, perception of the public then becomes, well, we got a basketball guy running our athletic department, and we need a football guy running our athletic department. What does it do for Utah? Ultimately, nothing, in my opinion, because Kalani ain't going anywhere, right? Where would he leave for? Maybe if Lincoln Riley screws it up again this year at USC, which I think he's going to, maybe USC is a place that Kalani could end up being at. If one of the Texas schools comes strong, because what do you get at those places? That unquestionably you get top-level commitment to football success. And that is what Kalani campaigned for this offseason to get at BYU. That's what they promised him. That's what I think they're trying to give him, but maybe they need to try a little bit harder. It's what it's going to take for BYU to be successful at the level that they need to be successful. Say what you will. There are people in the in the Utah fan base that are like, I don't know how I feel about Mark Harlan. I don't know how I feel about this private equity situation. You know what Mark Harlan ain't doing? He's not leaving any room for the possibility that he is not 100% committed to football success. Right? The equation at the University of Utah is the opposite, where if you're Alex Jensen, you needed to be convinced that you should leave the NBA circles to come back to your alma mater because you were going to get full commitment, the necessary commitment to basketball. A heavy lift to try to get Utah basketball back to where it needed to be. And he had to be convinced by multiple parties, right? Right now, in Provo, you're having to convince your football coach, who was in the conference championship game last year, that you're all in on football. That's not ideal. I don't think, though, it helps Morgan Scalley. I don't think it helps Utah football in any measurable way. So watch the soap opera, but don't relish it. Don't gloat on it. It doesn't actually do anything for you. What it does for you as a Utah fan is it lets you see and appreciate the difference between your athletic department and theirs. Because even though they've got more money right now, they've got more NIL opportunities for their student athletes right now, they got bigger boosters right now, or I should say more big boosters right now. What they don't have is harmony in the athletic department. Heading into the most important BYU football season of the last 25 years.
I'll say this too. It feels almost the opposite of what we experienced from at University of Utah perspective in December, where you had the longtime established coach Kyle Whittingham being like, okay, I kind of actually feel like I want to keep coaching here. And the athletic director and allegedly a bunch of the boosters being like, well, we kind of feel like we want to move on though, Kyle. It feels the opposite. This BYU situation feels the opposite, where it's like, where if push came to shove between Brian Santiago and this is basically what you've been saying, and Kalani Sitake, it would be Kalani Sitake being like, well, we kind of want to move on from you, Brian Santiago.
Well, here's the thing. The only thing that's going to move Kalani out of Provo at this point is if I'm not sure that BYU football, and I guess by extension, the approval has to come down from church headquarters on Kalani's salary. It has to be approved. Whether the money is donated or it's direct from the athletic department funds or the university funds, it has to be approved by the big bosses, right? If the Brethren have a max that USC's offer exceeds, or an Oregon offer exceeds when Dan Lanning goes to the NFL, or if, Texas gets sick of Steve Sarkisian because he doesn't maximize having Arch Manning there, and they make a phone call to Kalani Sitake, and it's $11, $12 million a year. The only thing that's going to peel Kalani out of Provo is if the Brethren say, we can't spend that much on our head football coach. It's not a good look for us as a church. And I don't know why it wouldn't be. I think they should sign off on that if that's what it comes to, but I don't know if they would. Otherwise, you're going to see Kalani Sitake likely retire at BYU.
I could also see, maybe it doesn't work out for Jed Fish at Washington. I could see that being a draw for Kalani.
They kicked the tires on that in the past. So.
Yeah, at very least, for him to be like, let's use this as leverage, the way that Penn State worked out as good leverage.
The reason I wouldn't put Washington in the same category is Washington is not going to spend $12 million on a head coach.
It's true. It's not USC. It's not Texas. It's not even Texas Tech in that regard, probably.
Washington, they'll take a big swing, but they won't be like – I hate to keep harping on things that have already come out. There are some schools that are very excited about being the biggest spenders, the highest offers. BYU likes to pretend they don't want to be that for players. We're never going to be the top spender. We're never going to be the highest offer. Well, you might have to be to keep Kalani Sitake. And if it's, we'll just call Jay Hill and bring him back from Michigan, that's a great alternative also. But if you're doing that because of tension between your athletic director and your head coach, you would be making the wrong choice siding with the athletic director. Enough of that. We'll wrap the show up next. A little crosstalk with Spence. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Little crosstalk coming. Brought to you by our friends at Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. The Drive with Spence Checketts is up next. He is right here in our Broadway studio. He came in with an exclusive RSL box. This is an alternate kit.
Yes, they are. I believe they're releasing it this week. Excuse me. And it's a throwback. This looks like
That's
the
awesome.
original, like 2005, 2006 kit.
I like that kit. I like it's got the Real Salt Lake front. There's not a sponsor on the front. It's the Intermountain Health on the back. Looks great. It's a really, really great shirt. We call them shirts in soccer.
Look at you, or kits, either way.
And I always thought the kit was the full kit and caboodle.
Yeah, no,
thing.
you're right actually.
So beautiful RSL shirt, and Gozo, I'm sorry you never get to wear it.
Maybe this was the deal. Maybe he saw the alternate kit and was like, yeah, I'm gone. So shout out to our friends over at RSL. I will be donning this during the show. They've asked me to kind of release this online. But you, good sir, took a little quick jaunt to Southern California over the weekend, hop on the plane. Did you get my text?
Yes, I apologize for not responding. I was in crisis management mode because we had a little health emergency going on that I was only able to participate in over text message for the first 6 hours or so.
Oh, dear.
Which was tough. Daughter's appendix burst. She's fine.
Okay.
Thankfully, everything's good. Everyone's healthy.
That's scary.
Yeah, it's always scary. But, yeah, you were stuck somewhere and I was on your television?
Yeah, I hop on the plane and, delayed because obviously that's the deal now. I guess just build it into the schedule at this point. All the flights are delayed. I'm like, all right, let's see what's on ESPN. Boom. Turn it over. My guy, PFL. Where were you?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. So, yeah, I'm like, there he is. There's my guy.
Did you like my purple suit?
It was a great look. You did a great job. As I've told you before, you're very good at this. You seem to very much enjoy it.
Love it.
You put on like a different hat.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's like a different Sean in a way.
I have to be more professional because you're the play-by-play guy instead of the analyst.
Yeah.
And, they've kind of coached me up through the years on, like, I know you were a fighter also, and that's a big part of your knowledge base and all that kind of stuff. But if you want to work play-by-play, if you want to have other opportunities in play-by-play, a play-by-play guy is the straight man.
Yeah.
The analyst is allowed to be the crackpot.
Who are you working with?
It's Dan Hardy.
Dan Hardy.
The outlaw, legendary UFC fighter, former welterweight title contender, general ne'er-do-well and interesting punk rock kind of guy.
You enjoy working with him, it seems like?
He's awesome.
All right, good.
Yeah,
good.
You would love Dan. Dan is incredibly cerebral when it comes to the sport itself.
Mm-hmm.
He loves hockey. He doesn't love other sports, but like a big-time like film study guy in MMA and very counterculture in everything that he does. Excellent
suit. Excellent job. Heard you talking about this Kalani stuff coming into the show. It's probably too far to say. It is being framed as Kalani versus Brian Santiago. It's being framed that way. Do I know if that's what it is? I don't. I can't crack this mic and say so. I will tell you this. When I got off air last night, I got a phone call from someone who was listening to the show yesterday. And maybe this is well known. Maybe this is not anything that's new because I kind of heard you gently allude to it. Brian Santiago was both ready and willing to simply move on to Jay Hill.
Yeah.
When Kalani got the Penn State call. There wasn't a push from Brian to keep Kalani.
It was other people who came in and said, no.
Including people that work up here. Including the people that are on South Temple.
Hold on. I was yelled at, berated, lambasted for suggesting that people here in Temple Square care about BYU football.
I have a different standing in the church than you do, Sean.
Interesting.
I'm allowed to talk about it the way that you're
I was told by somebody who's a lot higher up than anyone yelling at me that they talk about it every day in the offices because they're humans. But anyway.
And a lot of them are huge sports fans.
Yeah.
Including a lot that went to the U that love sports. This is not breaking news. But, in a way, this is a little bit like, look, if money people at Utah told Mark we're ready to move on from Kyle, Mark didn't have much of a choice. I know Mark has kind of had to wear some of the bad guy, and maybe he deserves some of this in some way, shape, or form. I think he'd be the first person to tell you that maybe he'd like to have a few moments back, as we all would in life. But if Brian Santiago just thought, so if we play the hypothetical based off of some knowledge that I have here, the Kalani gets the Penn State offer. And then he calls Brian and says, look, this is the number. Brian's probably like, dude, we can't. All right. Like, congrats, man. Like, good luck. I don't know that it was Brian Santiago not wanting to retain Kalani. I think it was Brian Santiago doing the math and saying, we can't meet that number.
Well, it's a hell of a thing when you're a pretty new athletic director to go into your bosses
right.
and say, we got to double this guy's salary now.
Right.
They're like, that's your first move?
Right. And so I'm sure in Brian's mind, it's okay. Let's operate off the assumption that it's $8 to $9 million. Educated guess there. Kalani gets $8 to $9 million from Penn State. And I'm sure if you're Brian, you're going, okay, well, we can pay Jay 3.
Yeah.
We'll bump him up to 3.5. And then instead of bumping Kalani up to 7 or 8, which reportedly they have, they pay Jay $3.5 million to be the head coach. They elevate Kelly Papinga to defensive coordinator. They retain A-Rod unless A-Rod follows Kalani to Penn State. But if you start to do the numbers a little bit and keep budgets in mind and keep kind of the way that they operate financially in mind down there, you can see where Brian's head is at here. I'm not necessarily taking an anti-Brian Santiago stance, but also what I was told is because Brian wasn't forward-facing about trying to keep Kalani, there were some hard feelings there. It took our guy Cookie Bro coming off the sideline, other powerful boosters and donors, and then again, the folks that work a couple of blocks from this studio ultimately making the call like, yeah, we want to keep him and we will commit to what he wants. What I found interesting about Kalani's statements to Ben, which we played on the show yesterday, it's very clear that promises were made that are not being delivered yet. And look, the fact of the matter is, in my opinion, it's always going to be challenging down there because of just the uniqueness of the way they operate, regardless if suddenly you're paid market value, which was always the thing. Lavelle famously said he never negotiated a contract. At one point on the radio show, he said, I wasn't really even sure what I was making. I just was grateful to be the head coach at BYU. And remember, the Detroit Lions tried to hire Lavelle Edwards. So I don't know what the market rate would have been in 1980, whatever, but he turned down the opportunity to actually make real money just to stay at BYU because he loved BYU. So forever, it was kind of like, if you want to keep your coaches, you have to start paying them market value. Well, now they're doing that, but it's clear the other complications are still in place, and I don't think it's going to cost them their head coach. But I heard you alluding to this. This is awful timing for them down there because everything else kind of appears to be in place. That's the other thing that caught me off guard. Because what we do know is they are committed to basketball. We absolutely know for sure that they paid A.J. DeBonsa $45 million, 425, not 45.
$45 million, breaking news.
Yeah, tweet that out. We absolutely know that they paid A.J. DeBonsa between $4 to $5 million. We know they paid Rob Wright $3 million. Scott Drew said that on the record. We know that Richie Saunders was getting 7 figures. So we know that financially they're compensating their basketball players. Now, basketball roster, 12 to 14 players, football, obviously much more. So it's a little bit apples and oranges. But I would imagine Bear Bachmeier, like if you look at the market, and Max Olson did some good reporting on this as far as now we know, generally speaking, what it costs to get a top shelf P4 quarterback.
Yeah.
If Josh Hoover can get $4 to $5 million and Brendan Sorsby can get $4 to $5 million, Bear Bachmeier could have. And so, you know, if we're led to believe that you don't necessarily have the resources that you're telling us that you were promised, they're paying Bear Bachmeier $2 to $3 million. They have to be. Because otherwise he would have left to get 3 to 4 elsewhere. He became the 4th freshman to win 12 football games in the history of the sport last year. You can't tell me that he didn't have the opportunity to get paid elsewhere.
There's a lot of people that wanted Bear Bachmeier.
They have to be paying some of these top shelf players. You reference Falatau, Satawala, attended Harvard of the West, Bountiful High School. Not my opinion, others. NFL guy, could be wherever he wants. So is he getting every penny he possibly could from BYU? If you profess to us that the answer to that is no, okay, fine. But it has to be close to it.
It has to be close.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that with coaches, they banked on for years. Like, you'll take 20 to 50% less than market value.
Mm-hmm.
Now that players are involved here, players are not – you don't have that same kind of perspective, right? Like, if you're a 19-year-old kid, you're not like, well, I really want to raise my family in Provo.
Right.
That's where coaches are at. It was worth it for a lot of people. Obviously, it was worth it for Lavelle to just kind of take that hit. And, look, it paid off for him. His name's on the side of the stadium.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? His legacy is intact forever down there. If you're telling a kid, hey, it's a special place, cool, I know, I agree, I love this place. How special is it? It's so special we're going to give you half of what everyone else is giving you.
Right.
That's not that special, coach.
No.
how about I'll take 90% of what Georgia offered me because I do believe it's special here. Because I love you. I love my teammates. I think we can win here. And, yeah, like the best wide receiver in the game right now is from this school. The best linebacker in the NFL right now, one of the top 3 guys, is from this school.
Yeah.
We got, like, a lot of good things going on. But you're right. It has to be close. And close, how long can you expect somebody to win and make a college football playoff by paying close to what everyone else is paying for players? It's a huge ask for Kalani. Huge. I don't know how long you can expect him to do it, especially if there's another Penn State type offer this offseason.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing that he said, and look, I don't want to tell Ben or any other radio host how to do their jobs. I would have liked to follow up to understand exactly what he's talking about, because the other thing he said that completely caught me off guard is we are asked to do the most with the least. We are asked to do the most with the least. What we've all been led to believe is that in the Big 12 footprint, there are 2 big spenders. One is Texas Tech, the other is BYU. Because Kalani then went on to say, I'm not asking for what Texas Tech gets, I'm asking for what the others get. And then you go, well, wait a second. Maybe nobody in this conference is getting what Joey McGuire is getting because of Cody Campbell. Okay, we can put them aside. But now it begs the question, like, where exactly is BYU in the landscape of all the other spenders in the conference? Because I don't know about you, I've been operating off the assumption that everything is fine down there. Gordon Monson wrote a piece last year citing multiple boosters. One of them said to Gordon verbatim, quote, "We are swimming in money." So it's either you are swimming in money, but you're not allocating the resources to where they need to be allocated, or you're not necessarily being forthcoming about exactly where you're at. And that therein lies the complication of having a private institution not beholden to releasing records the way their peers are beholden to releasing records in a conference that essentially has an infrastructure that is supported by public funds. Therefore, in my opinion, if you're a member of the Big 12, because your conference is supported by public funds all over BYU would not be able to play in the Big 12 if it wasn't for the public funding that provides stadiums and provides opponents and provides infrastructure. Therefore, in my opinion, every member institution in a publicly funded conference should be beholden to being transparent about their finances, because BYU is not beholden to that, and therefore it leads to all these questions about, okay, exactly what's going on and what's going on behind the scenes and where's the money going. And, you know, we know that you're paying basketball players. You just had the number 1 pick in the draft. But it still feels like you're paying football. The bottom line is this, like, what is Kalani referring to is my question.
Well, even Utah and Texas Tech, they don't have to disclose. Player NIL money is not disclosed, right? Revenue share money you can find. Whether you could find an accurate distribution, dubious, right? But, like, Brendan Sorsby's reported price tag was $5 million, and also it was $6 million, and also it was $7 million, and also it was $7.5 million. So when it comes to NIL deals, we don't have full transparency yet, the way you do with like like the coaching salaries. Obviously, we don't know exactly what Kalani's salary is. We can look up what Morgan's salary is, and every member of that coaching staff is. I am equally curious, because if you're not one of the 3 big spenders, why are we doing all this chest pounding about, like, oh, look what we've got. We've got these, dozen billionaires that love BYU athletics. We got Cookie Bro, and we got Ryan Smith. We got Danny Ainge. If you're not getting what you are promised or what you think you deserve down there, again, like, somebody has a booster base that is going to give you that.
Yeah, I just continue to wonder exactly what he's talking about. Is he talking about, because the other thing he referenced is when Penn State sent him his offer, he said, now I know what they have.
Yeah.
Now, let's be clear. No one in this conference is ever going to have what Penn State had, which is one of the reasons when I heard that Penn State was the job, I'm like, Kalani's, you got to take that job, in my opinion, because if you're in college football right now, you want to be in the Big Ten of the SEC. You just do. Again, BYU's unique, Provo's unique. They stepped up to the plate, because you remember what Kalani told us at Big 12 Media Day. He said, when I got the offer, I brought it back to BYU, and all I wanted to know is, are you committed to football? And then he said to us, they gave me an emphatic answer, and it is yes. And then we fast forward 6 weeks, and suddenly it's like, okay, we're 3.5 weeks away from a game, dude. Like,
Yeah.
Suddenly all of this noise in that athletic department, I mean, if you're a BYU fan, I don't think it's cause for panic, but it's not great as we're high speed ahead to game day.
Well, there's a lot of meat on the bone. I'll let you talk about the rest of it. I'm chewing up your entire first segment here.
All good.
Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll do it again tomorrow. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.